Well, hello everybody. Are all one or two of you watching? What's going on this evening? This is just an impromptu stream. Wasn't planned, so I'll wait around for a few minutes to see if anybody shows up. Actually pretty good though, because we're just watching a little red dot sit still. I haven't touched the balance since we quit last night. I just put the weights back in the neutral position, walked away from it, and left it. Hello, Sean Hawkins. I need someone with a CNC mill. Folding propeller hubs, huh? I have no idea who that would be, Sean. Sure isn't me. I don't have CNC. Crashes might be able to help you. But I thought since I left it stable all day, it's still just oscillating very slightly. We'll kind of keep the little red spot in the picture here for at least a known oscillation period. And we know that that's 960 seconds, so that's, I think, 16 minutes and 10 seconds. So we'll let the stream go for a little bit. Saw something interesting out of Tony and the Tony tub. He was showing magnetic influence on his balance because these little loops. Let's see, I'm going to switch cameras so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Because these little loops in the top that we tie the wire to, apparently on the weights that Tony got, for some reason those things are made out of steel. Can't imagine why they would do that. I haven't run across fishing weights that had steel eyes in them. All the ones I saw, every one of them has brass. So my large 50-pounders over there have brass. These little guys have got brass. That's all well documented. And they come from a company, if anybody's interested, named Ocean Angler. Ocean Angler. They're out in California somewhere. But you can go online. They've got a website, and you can see these things. This is the ones. This is one of the weights that's used in the smaller balance. It's a 12 ounce, as you can see there. This is one of the weights like I'm using in the torsion balance that's in the case right now, 28 ounce. The reason I got so many of them is there's a minimum order quantity requirement. I think I had to buy 7 of these 28 ounces. And I don't know, I got a whole damn bag full of these little 12 ounce guys. But it's brass. So here's a tape measure. Got a couple of neodymium magnets, and as you can see, those actually are little magnets stuck there. Let's try taking the magnets just to be sure and see if they'll stick. See if we can get them to stick to anything to do with this lead ball. Nope. It really is lead and brass. Let's try the big ones. Again, can't even get them to balance up there. Won't stick to the... See if I can demonstrate it better. Get it where you can see it. They absolutely are not sticking to anything. Just fall off. Same thing with this one. I mean, this is... I hate being reduced to a thing like this, but people are constantly accusing us of cheating. So let's just be clever about that. Oh, good. Look, got it to stick, didn't I? Look at that. Oops, not stuck. Okay. There's no magnetic material involved here. So let me go back over to the stream. Looks like 4 of you guys. Hello, Brad. Hello, Clive. Dart, what's going on? So hopefully that answers one of the accusations that they continue to level at us, that we're somehow or the other influencing this thing with magnetics, which of course we're not. Everything involved here is diamagnetic material. But the other constant complaint that I hear from these guys has to do with my presence out here somehow having an effect. And Anthony Riley is still maintaining that Cavendish was actually talking about air currents created by Cavendish being in the room with the machine, that somehow or the other was going to produce the air currents that would move the balance, as Cavendish said, sensibly aside, which is Anthony reading it wrong because he wants to read it that way, because it gives him something he can talk about, something he can point at and claim our testing has been invalid because I've been out here through a lot of it. So I thought maybe just for fun, I'll turn the camera around in a few minutes, get a view of the enclosure. We've got the balance very stable. It's deviating just ever so slightly. Still slightly oscillating. It takes days for it to ever get to come to an absolute complete rest, which is what you expect with this sort of long period pendulum. But I thought what I might do is just put the camera on the machine, on the experiment, where everybody can see it, and then I'll just do a few laps around it, walk around through the shop like I normally do, and let's see if there's any influence on the balance with me doing that. Now, I will stay pretty far away from the front or the back of it, because that's the direction where the mass of my body actually can have an effect on it. But still, just me walking around in the room, I never go in front of it or behind it any more than I have to, other than just the brief period of time it takes me to walk to the other side, reverse the weights, and then walk back to this side. That's all I ever do. But we'll do a lot more than that tonight. We'll go around and around it 4 or 5 times, and see what happens. Then we'll move the weights and see what happens. So I'm not anxious to give this particular guy any publicity, but Nathan Oakley put out a challenge, calling me out, as he said today. So he did a whole episode of his foolishness. And exactly as I predicted, Nathan is now trying to say gas molecules don't attract other gas molecules, therefore not gravity, therefore this is not a test, gravity doesn't exist, etc., etc. That's exactly what we thought. Clive says we'll time your lapse. Okay, that'll work. Hello, Real Cygnus. What's going on, Real? Looks like we got 9 viewers. So I've already done the magnetic demonstration. I think I didn't watch very closely what Sleeping Warrior did, but he claims that his lead weights, these little eyelets on the top that you attach your line to, that little thing right up there on the top. He's claiming on his, they're, let's see, where can I put this? Maybe right over the top of get it over the top of the tablet and it'll look better. You can kind of see it there. He claims his are steel. I never heard of fishing weights with steel loops in them. But whatever. It apparently did respond to a magnet. These are brass. These are neodymium magnets, and I've touched them to everything, and obviously they don't stick to anything. Nothing. Well, they'll stick to this steel tape, but not to the lead and not to the little ringlets. There are no magnetic effects going on here. I've been very careful to make sure all the material is non-magnetic. I'm going to recenter my little green circle, because I think center is somewhere right around there. We'll just kind of keep an eye on it. It's, as I say, it's still oscillating slightly, so that can go on for days. One thing's clear. The flat earth side is panicked, absolutely panicked at this point. They know what we're showing. They know how well we're showing it, and they can't get out of this. This really is mass attracting mass. Yeah, real. That's what I thought. Leave it to Riley to come up with the only magnetic eyelets anywhere. Why would you do that? It's a damn fishing weight. It's going to go in the water. The last thing I would want is a steel eyelet in there. At least make it out of stainless. The brass is pretty cheap. I don't know what was going on. But like I said earlier in the stream, if you're interested in seeing what I bought, go to a company. You can go online and Google a company named Ocean Angler. Ocean Angler, Angler. They're out in California, and that's where these weights come from. In fact, on this front page, I think on his very front page today, I saw the 50-pounders that we're using. He had not made very many of those, but I guess he's pretty proud of these because he put a picture of them on there. And then you have to look, I think, for the 28s and the 12s, but these little ones that we used on the other balance are 12 ounces. And the ones that are in the machine right now are 28. Like I said, I had to buy 7 of these things to meet the minimum order quantity, and I got a whole damn bag full of these little guys. So, I don't know, Christmas tree ornaments or something. Probably not the best thing for Christmas tree ornaments. I don't know. I'll give them away or do something with them. Hello, Doug Walker. You can, Sean. Really get 50-pound cannonball weights? I had a devil of a time finding the damn things. And I thought I had hit the jackpot when I ran across Ocean Angler. And at first, when I talked to the guy, he said they could make 65-pounders and ship them, or maybe 70. Now, I think 65 is what he said was going to be his max. I think the shipping limit was 70, so he didn't want to take any chances. But apparently, when he started digging into his molds, he didn't come up with a 65-pound mold. So that's how we ended up with these 50s. But they work fine. Hello, Ace. What is going on? And Devils. Yeah, I agree. Watching the flirt squirm almost makes up for almost makes up for the paint drying action. True enough. Sean says make your own. You know, and I thought about that, Sean. I mean, I did seriously think about it, but I'm not. I have absolutely no experience or no expertise when it comes to casting lead or casting anything for that matter. And one thing a boss of mine in the R&D field, when I was involved in doing that stuff on a day-to-day basis, one thing I remember him telling me pretty early on, he said, whatever you do, don't ever make one R&D program dependent on the outcome of another one. And as I thought about it, that's exactly what I would have been doing, because I don't know anything about casting lead, and I didn't want the outcome of this tied to my learning curve on making lead balls. So better off just to buy it from somebody that knows how to do it. Hello, Alien. John Rapp. Dart. Is there a link to Riley's Cavendish debacle? No, I don't have it. Well, I do, but not on this computer. Tell you what, I'll try to look it up. You can look up Sleeping Warrior. Just search YouTube for the Sleeping Warrior. He's got 249 249 subs at the moment, I think. Yeah, real lead is easy to cast. That's absolutely right. I mean, that's why it's so popular. Became so popular using it for things like bullets. It's nice and heavy, dense, and you can melt it over a campfire. Unlike something like tungsten, where you need a carbon arc furnace. Okay, we got 22 minutes and 50 seconds of video now of the balance sitting as stationary as it's going to sit for the moment. I'm going to, let's see, flip this thing around where I can turn the camera back around. There we go. So we've shown that the lead balls are exactly the way you'll find them described in ocean anglers' literature. They are pure lead, and the loops are brass. So there's nothing magnetic about it. You guys on the Sleeping Warrior team can bitch all you want to. It ain't gonna work. There's no magnetic material here. Now, regarding this ridiculous claim that me walking around out here is going to produce an air current outside of this enclosure sufficient to cause, in Cavendish's words, the balance to be pulled sensibly aside, is about to be dispelled. Let's see how this goes. There's lap number one. Let's do another one. Lap number two. Let's go for three. Three down. Try for four. Let's do one more just for good measure. Now there's 5 laps. And a hell of a lot more movement than I normally make when I'm out here just sitting where I'm sitting, which is right behind well, you guys saw where I'm sitting. Let's see if we alter the movement of the laser to any noticeable degree. My guess is no. Yeah, I could do it again, Clive, but I'm not gonna. Will the magnet slow down due to the Lorentz effect through a lead pipe? It should. I think. Um, I think so. I think you're still going to generate an electric current as it passes through that conductive lead. And that's what slows it down. That's the effect that slows it down. It's the magnetic field generated by that electric current. Yeah, dog walker, that's the flatards are desperately trying to clutch at straws at the moment. Yes, they are. They realize that they're getting their ass whipped here. Okay, I've been talking for about the last 10 minutes with the damn mic muted. You guys missed some of the best stuff I've got going. Um, so what I'm going to do, I can't repeat all that rant. I don't even remember what I said now. Um, we've got this clear deflection upscale, which is exactly the way it should be. It's rotated the beam clockwise, which could be nothing other than an attraction between the small masses and the large masses. That's irrefutable, Nathan. There's nothing you can do about it. You can cry and moan all you want to, but those are the facts. I've shown you tonight, early in the stream, that there's nothing magnetic about these balls. If Sleepy ended up with iron or steel loops in his, I don't know what to tell you. Call Ocean Angler. That's where I got mine from, and all the loops are brass. And I've shown that. So I walked around this thing 5 times. I saw little, if any, effect of me going around it, and if it had any effect, it wouldn't have had anything to do with air current. It would have had to do with the mass of my body, and that's the reason I don't go around that thing. I stay over here on this side, off the end of it, where my body mass will not have any impact on the position of that beam. So, yeah, I muted me, but I was saying that we'll let this thing go through an oscillation on this end, and then I think we'll just run a real quick other measurement. So you guys sit tight. I'll be right back. I'm going to get the camera. Okay, I'm back. Got the camera. Let me pop the battery out. Put the AC adapter in it. Now let's see how long do we want to let this thing run. I'll tell you what. I think we'll do 400 shots, which will be 133 minutes. So a couple hours. I think I could do that. So let me turn the camera on. Go to time lapse. We'll set the interval for 20 seconds. The image count for 400. And we'll set the aspect ratio at 16:9. Okay, camera's ready. So let me go get this sitting on the tripod. I'll be right back. Okay, it's ready to go. So now we're going to wait And let the laser go all the way back up scale. Make sure we get a pretty decent deflection, a nice oscillation. That's probably 8 minutes from now, or I'll set a timer for 7 minutes. Just to remind me to take a look. And I can go back to the chat for a minute. Rob Parks, hello. Good recap, John. I heard the same thing. I think that Discord link works if anybody wants to try to join. I think I'm on Discord too. Wait a minute, I may not be on. I'm not. No, I am. Or at least I think I am. It says I am. All right. Paid Nascent Shill. I've seen you before. Is that you?
Yeah, just.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Good, you?
Yeah, pretty good. Just doing an impromptu stream here.
Honestly, I can't be on two things. I'm hearing myself with a time delay. It's really annoying.
Turn your mute your YouTube.
You're working on it. There we go. That's better.
That'll fix it.
Yeah, it did. Thanks. Yeah, I was amazed when you told me this is all because air has no mass, or does air have mass? I forget.
Those guys are nuts.
Well, they have to deny gravity. I mean,
Yeah.
You just cannot have gravity on the flat Earth, so they have to do anything they can to deny it, and they'll come with any sort of bollocks to do it.
Yeah, gravity is kryptonite to the flat Earth theory. But boy, they're coming out in mass now.
Well, you need to do this in a. I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe this is part of the vacuum chamber thing, where you need to do this in a vacuum chamber in your garage, and right?
Well, they haven't. They've been holding that one back. That'll come eventually.
Well, if air doesn't have mass, what good would it be to be in a vacuum?
Yeah, true.
So I'm kind of confused.
Well, they can't make their mind up what it means. First they say air doesn't have mass, then they claim that me moving around out here has caused deflection of the torsion balance because I'm moving the air around, which didn't have any mass, so I don't know how to move the balance.
Yeah. And the fact that I think they really don't understand that you're measuring the force 90 degrees to the gravity vector.
Oh, I think they understand that they just deny it. There are enough of them that don't understand it that the few that do can bamboozle the ones that don't.
So.
And
this wire is really stable.
And of course, Nathan's latest, just as I predicted the other night, Nathan's shot at me today is that air, gas molecules don't attract other gas molecules. What?
Yeah, in fact, gravity doesn't attract air molecules, and despite the fact that that's the whole reason the atmosphere is held down, that's the container that they're looking for, and explains the gradient and all that kind of stuff. They just don't seem to get that.
I guess we've only known for, what, 100 years or more that Newtonian physics does not work at the quantum level. I think we've been pretty aware of the fact that you can't calculate an attraction between two gas molecules using Newton's gravity equations. And how that somehow or the other refutes what you're seeing with your own two eyes right now is astounding to me. That makes no sense.
You need to ignore a lot of stuff to be a flat earther. This is just one of the big ones. I mean, this is the proof of gravity, if you will.
Devil's in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. The gradient itself. And you can measure that gradient without the need of a dynamic atmosphere that they always talk about. That gradient will exist in a sealed container.
Yeah, but it better be a pretty big one if you're going to measure it.
I measured it in a 4-foot pipe.
Well, okay. That's true.
Yeah.
But that was a container, though. Oh, was it? It wasn't a container.
It was a pipe without a cap on the end of it.
Yeah, but it's a container. It's like saying you can't do chemistry because you're using test tubes.
Oops. Shut that thing off.
Popcorn's ready.
I think we're close to the peak over here. Looks like it still might be moving upscale just slightly.
This wire is really stable, unlike the last one you had.
Yeah, tungsten is a pain in the ass to work with, but once you figure out how to get it connected, I like the way it's operated. Absolutely.
Oh, octopants. Yeah, that's the sky thing is always interesting. They have, I especially like when southern hemisphere flirts look at the sky and ignore what they see and say that the Earth is flat.
Well, let's get this show rolling. I'm going to go move the masses.
Not flat. Thank you.
All right, let me start the camera. So got a time lapse going. Got everything rolling. Terrific. Set one of my kitchen timers just to keep track of about where we are in the cycle. Who else we got in the live chat? Anybody? Left lane.
What's up?
What's going on?
I just been over listening to Kent Hovind get destroyed on modern day debates.
I can't watch him anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time. I popped up on a notification, so I went over there and watched. But yeah,
Ever since Cats destroyed him, I just can't watch him.
yeah, he didn't do any better tonight.
Was on the age of the Earth or on evolution. That's all I can debate about.
Yep, that's it. The age of the Earth and evolution.
But it was on both of them.
Yeah, it was kind of bouncing around. I'm not sure what Maddie was the lady's name that was debated. I'm not sure what her credentials are, but she is a practicing scientist in whatever it is that she does. Very smart lady. Yeah, SE was over there and he agreed with everything Kent said until it turned to the shape of the Earth.
And all of a sudden he became a dumbass, huh?
Yep.
S.E. Montreal is an amazing dude. He was in what was he in Jem's channel saying that the tides were fake or something. He destroyed tides or something. I forget what he did.
So he came in there and roughed him up, did he?
In SE's mind, he destroys everybody all the time.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny. He says that the moon, he doesn't deny tides, that he denies that the moon causes tides. I said, well, then what causes tides? And they don't seem to have an answer for that.
Well, we don't know what causes tides. We just know it's not the moon.
I love that argument. And we don't know the shape of the Earth, but we know it's not a ball. Well, we don't know what the sun is, but it's not a yellow thing in the sky. It's a reflection off a swamp gas. Sounds like something out of Men in Black. It's a reflection on a swamp gas.
Are you sitting still tonight, Howard, or are you driving?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm at home for a change.
All righty.
My girlfriend's at her daughter's up in South Carolina, so I'm just kind of sitting around the house resting.
That's a good thing to do.
It is.
Yeah, tides go in and tides go out, and at regular intervals with a certain celestial body. Amazing how that one celestial body just happens to be either above you or right below you.
Always in the right spot.
Yeah, just amazing how that works.
Yeah. I think tides cause moon rotation is what I think.
There you go.
That's what they call tidal locking, right?
Sure.
Yeah, the tide it's got the moon locked in an orbit.
Yeah, that must be what it is. I wonder why those guys haven't thought about that.
We can't plant the seed.
You have many ideas.
Oh, we need to promote that one. I like that one. We can now explain why the moon goes around in a circle. The tides drag the moon around in a circle. That's what it is. Gotta be.
Yes, the electromagnetic disequilibrium something. You got to throw some disequilibrium and some electromagnetism, mix it all up.
Disequilibrium. My skin crawls every time I hear that.
Oh, I know it.
Disequilibrium, my ass.
I'm still waiting for someone to tell me how relative density changes when you go over the top of the parabola in the Baumann's comet.
Something strange
Yeah.
happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, it just all the I don't know. What happens to the relative density? It doesn't change as near as I can figure out, but everything starts floating.
Well, I mean, the ultimate debunk of that is is things go falling in a vacuum, and there is of course, uh, yeah, you got to invoke ether. You know, there's
Oh well,
something.
no. There's no such thing as a perfect vacuum. So the few atoms that are in there.
Yeah,
Hey, but look,
but there's no variance in the rate that things fall. You would think if density had something to do with it, as increase the vacuum, that the rate would.
Robbie, you're echoing.
yeah, mute your watch
Am I
page there,
echoing?
Rob.
Yes.
Yeah, mute your watch page.
Oh, sorry.
Because it'll feed back through the watch page. You'll get that delay, and it's real annoying. But that'll fix it. Yeah, well, if you think that I'm not real sure how this would work, but maybe we could flesh something out for them here. So if these lead balls actually just for some reason or the other become part of the medium, right? Then I guess we could make the case that I've increased the density of the medium locally, right? Or the lead balls increase the density of the medium. So
someone, I think it was Jeremy today, asked me if you're doing Einsteinian or Newtonian gravity when you do this experiment, and I said both. They said, what? Does he bend space-time? I said, yeah. Every time he moves those lead balls around, he bends a little bit of space-time. What's the problem with that? He didn't like that answer.
well, they don't like it. It's the same gravity. They hate that, but it really is.
And by Einsteinian's definition, you bend space-time by moving the lead balls into position.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know something funny? You know something funny? That thing we call the universal gravitational constant, big G, the one we're measuring right here, that not only appears in Newtonian, let me shut that thing up. Not only appears in the modern day version of Newton's equations, it's also in Einstein's equations.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's actually the same gravity, guys. It doesn't matter which one. All the same. I gave an example, I think maybe on Jim's server earlier when we were talking, and I think it's a good way to think about it. Consider our usual arguments over 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that's just a rule of thumb that works really well if you're only going to go out 20 miles. It gives you an answer which is essentially identical to the answer you get by taking a much more sophisticated mathematical approach. Well, that's no different than Newton and Einstein. If I'm only going to go out 20 miles, I'll just use Newton. If I need to go 3,000 miles, we'll pull Einstein out of the drawer and start using his stuff. That's really what it amounts to. It's two different ways of getting to the answer, but if you get at the right end of it, both of them give you the same answer. It's the other end.
You need to use Einstein when you're going really, really fast, like some large percentage speed of light. You're really, really small, so down around Planck's constant, or you're in a really, really strong gravitational field. Other than that, Newton works pretty well.
Yeah, it's around 10% relativistic speed. 10% speed of light.
So that's all. I thought it was faster than that.
It really depends on how precise your measurements need to be.
Correct.
Because we're talking about ultimately a corrective factor. So if your instruments aren't that sensitive, then you can probably push it out for to faster speeds. But if you've got a very, very sensitive instrument, then 10% is usually the rule of thumb.
Well, if you're making
That was
a very, very precise time measurement like GPS has to do, then it doesn't even need to be anywhere close to 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
The effect is there, even if you're just going in 1 foot per second. It's just imperceptible.
well, yeah, well, they had two things going on with them. You know, they have the speed of the satellite, then they have the fact that they're further out of the gravity well too. So they got that going on too. They've got a couple different things going on.
Oakley, if you're watching, can you explain to me why the damn red dot went all the way from the right side to the left side? When the only thing I did was move these lead balls? And it's moving in a direction toward the lead balls, not away from them, so it's not repulsion. It clearly has to be attraction. So
10% speed of light is still like 67 million miles an hour. Yeah, okay, that's. I just thought it was higher than that, but okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's just typically the rule of thumb when we teach physics. Basically, if you're going slower than 10%, then you can use Newtonian. But if you're higher than 10%, then you start have to worry about GR. It's funny. I was just at a live stream where I was listening to some astronomy talks, and actually, GR versus classical came up when talking about planetary formation. And the speaker was showing simulations on how exoplanets form. And a question from one of the audience members, as it were, was, are you using classical or GR in those simulations? And she said, classical. They're not moving, they're not close enough to the host star for GR to be that large of an effect, and they're obviously not moving that quickly. So classical is still very much a valid way to do science.
Of course.
Well, not according to our friends on the flat, not our favorite flat Earth scientists, though. Because
well,
Einstein, was it replaced? Superseded? What's the word they use?
Superseded, I think, is the one that likes to use.
Well, it was.
I'm getting in trouble from a lot of people because, well, I'd like your opinion, Blue. Am I out of line when I ask these guys what their scientific training is when they have to say stuff like, you know, when they start talking about what the scientific method is and all that kind of stuff?
Well, they have none.
Well, I know that, but am I out of line to ask that? People get all upset with me when I ask that.
Why didn't I think it's a pertinent question.
Yeah, me too, because I think they're proving, if nothing else, they're proving Dunning-Kruger.
Well, if you're going,
what are you asking?
I'm asking them. I always ask them what their scientific training is. You know, how much of the science have they studied? You know, what do they know about science? And usually the answer is, well, why are you asking me? That doesn't matter. I go, well, yes, it does, because here you are telling the world what the scientific method is, how scientists have to do their job. You know, I don't come to McDonald's and tell you how to do your job while you go and telling scientists how to do their job.
I think we've just uncovered the problem here.
Well, yeah, I could get in trouble for that part. I understand that. I mean, I don't go to Jeremy and tell him how to mop floors. Why is he telling me how to do the scientific method?
Yeah, I asked QE about it, and he was like, I asked him for him to give me a definition of the scientific method, just basically lay it out for me like I'm a child. And he pointed me to 6 hours of his videos.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Elephant hurling.
Well, not only that, but then I think Dr. Bob is the best one for this. He traces through his references, his citations, and they're usually, he pulls a sentence out of context because, you know, it's like sometimes like the next sentence or at most a paragraph later, they're saying something completely different.
Well, I can tell you from my experience, the same as the same as Bob has had, that anytime I've wanted to debunk anything Quantum Eraser says, I don't need to bother looking for other references. I just use his own references. Invariably, within a few paragraphs, you'll be able to turn it around. He's the worst in the world when it comes to cherry picking stuff.
Then one time you start quoting the University of Carolina, the University of North Carolina, the University of Boston. In fact, one he attributed to Boston College. It turns out there was BC, which was this guy in British Columbia. But
Slightly
keep
different.
telling them, how come the University of North Carolina? Yeah, the University of North Carolina. If you called them up, I bet they would tell you that the Earth is round too, that the Earth is a sphere.
Pretty sure that's the case, yes.
Unless you call up maybe the philosophy department, but if you call the science department.
Well, they're certainly challenged when it comes to research. There's no doubt about that.
Well, research means watching YouTube videos.
Or actually reading the entire Wikipedia article, not just the first paragraph.
Can't do that.
It hadn't been. It really hadn't been all that long since Sleeping Warrior got the wrong Foucault. If you guys recall
That was funny.
Yeah.
The wrong Foucault. Michael Foucault.
I was going to mention that that Riley's adventures with Wikipedia are pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, how do you get? I mean, you have to be. Oh, you have to be pretty stupid. I know that's Riley, but to mess up Michael Foucault, who lived in the 60s, I believe, and Leon Foucault, who was in the 1800s. I mean, it's like, oh, they're both named Smith, so they must be the same guy.
Incredible levels of stupidity.
I blame you. I blame you because
Go ahead.
Blue, because he came back with the how stupid can you be? And I think you're right. They're taking this as a challenge.
Oh wait.
One of my viewers said that in one of the channel members said that in a comment to me, and I thought that was so great. I would just start using it.
No, it fits. But I think Riley's been getting quite a bit of pressure to provide drawings or plans or something on his apparatus, even from his own side, and he's refusing to show them.
Well, he caught himself in his own damn trap.
It doesn't work.
He caught himself in his own trap. They thought, I don't know if it was all of them to put together or just Riley came up with the idea, that if they approached me and started asking for information, that I would just shut them down, tell them to go to hell, pitch a fit, call them names, and that'd be the end of it. And they could say, see, the guy's uncooperative, he's just a jerk, and so forth and so on. And the instant he started asking the questions, I said, aha, here's an opportunity. And I flooded him with information and offered more. I don't know what it is about this thing that I haven't already put out on YouTube, but I know that I made the offer to anybody that wants the damn drawings of it. I'll be glad to send you that too. Just send me an email and tell me how I can get them to you, and I'll be happy to.
That's what I keep telling Leaky every chance I get. And Blue's got hours upon hours of observations, live streamed, hiding absolutely nothing. And I want him to validate him calling you dishonest, because it's like there's no way that he could say you're dishonest with any integrity at all.
I just don't know what the problem is with Riley's gizmo, the Tony tub, I guess we'll call it. I don't know why he won't share any details about the Tony tub. He won't even tell us what the damn torsion wire is made out of. I mean, why all the
Honestly,
secrecy?
I think the reason for that is that he literally doesn't know.
That could be. I got a feeling
I think
that guy John D is the one that's been fiddling with this thing.
Oh, the PhD, not PhD.
Absent definitive information to the contrary, I refuse to reject somebody's credentials. I won't do that. I have no reason to not believe that the guy is what he says he is. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Right.
A PhD in what?
What does he say? Yeah, what does he
Spectroscopy.
say he is?
He's got a PhD in spectroscopy.
And he's a flat earther?
Yeah.
What kind of spectroscopy?
I can't find it. I've looked and I can't find any university or educational institution that offers any such degree in spectroscopy.
Oh, well, there's spectroscopy and then there's spectroscopy. I mean, it's a broad term that can apply to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, it is a broad term.
Yeah, it's not a field of study, it's a technique of study.
I mean, he could be an astronomer, he could be a chemist, he could be a physicist, he could be working, he could be a med guy, who injects stuff in your, I mean, you got your local doctor's office, not doctor's office, but something bigger, the test center. I mean, every one of them's got a spectrometer in there.
Yeah. Well, I asked him directly what his PhD was in, and that's what he told me. So
I
we
gotta go
can
get
go
him.
by that.
What if that was his paper?
I'm gonna go
That was
get a
his-
coffee. I'll be right back. You guys hold it down.
Okay.
Sure. But even still, I mean, even if that was his dissertation, then that's a pretty broad description of it. So
I don't know. Would it
weird.
be something that would fall under an astrophysicist, or I mean, what would you classify that under?
It's pretty wide, buddy.
Well,
Forensic scientists use gas spectrography.
Right. The GC mass spec. Your doctor, every big doctor's office has got one. Every hospital has 2 or 3.
It's a bit like saying you've got a PhD in using a microscope. It's a tool. It's not a field of study, is it?
exactly.
Well, there are some.
I've done spectroscopy.
There are some cutting edge stuff. I mean, if you're on the, looking at it through a telescope at the light coming from some distant star, that it's.
Yeah, I did spectroscopy to measure the velocity of really hot stars that were moving very, very quickly through the disk of our galaxy. But my PhD is in astronomy, not
Look
spectroscopy.
for the redshift.
Yeah, so what we were trying to do was actually determine so these are called high velocity massive stars. And so we were trying to figure out if any of them were actually binary. And so of the 6 that we were looking at, the one that I analyzed was the only one that was not, in fact, a binary.
Cool.
So, yay! Negative result.
Tell by the wobble.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So it's the Doppler effect. So if an object is coming towards you, be it sound or light, the frequency or let's say the wavelength of that wave is going to decrease. And so from a light perspective, the object is going to appear slightly bluer. And then as the object orbits around its center of mass, it's going to move away from you. It's going to get a little bit redder, bluer, redder.
All right, I got a joke for you if you understand, since you're study this and use this. It's roses are red, violets are blue, depending on their velocity relative to you.
Nice. I'm gonna have to steal that one.
Good.
You're
welcome.
If he's a PhD in spectroscopy, then he could tell Lemon what the sun is made of, because we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know what the sun is, and we don't know. And
But
But then again, Lemon has told a medical doctor how eyes work. So.
Or why not?
Why not? Leaky told Bob how math works. That was fucking hilarious.
It
Yeah,
is
it's really hilarious with you. And 9.8 meters per second means it's an inverse square law.
Yeah, I was there for that. It was funny both times.
Oh man, I watched that this morning and shit.
Yeah. 8 inches per mile squared. That's on a slope.
I'm about
Because
I'm
so
about
yeah, at 1 second it was going 9.81, and at 2 seconds it was going at 4 times 9, so it's going 40, and at 3 seconds it's going 9 times. You're going like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, you have terminal velocity in like 2 seconds.
Hey, but listen, if you want to round 9.8 to a whole number, why do you go to 9?
I was wondering that myself.
Isn't
Yeah,
the math
easy. Yeah, let's keep
Yeah,
the math
9
easy.
is always an easy number to work with, right?
Yeah, let's work. Yeah, let's make math easy. So let's not work in base 10.
Yeah.
Oh boy, if you could reach terminal velocity in 2 seconds, no one would ever survive a fall off a footstool. I mean, it would.
You don't know how.
This is why.
some kind of hard.
This is why I ask these guys how much math and how much science they've studied, because one of the first things you learn in like physics 101 is unit analysis.
Yes.
You need to come
Absolutely.
out with a speed. You need to come out with a distance per time. Meters per second. An acceleration.
That's another thing they don't get about relative density is it's a unitless ratio.
Yeah,
It
no, it's
doesn't have
vectorless, but it's unitless too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is basic physics 101, and who's my favorite? I can't remember all these idiots now. The guy with the who proved that how round the Earth is based on optical, I think it's flat Earth data. He's got this big long formula that he says it's so fast I can't write it down, but he divides like a distance by the wavelength of light at 500 nanometers. So he's coming up with miles per nanometer, and he comes up with the correct answer for the diameter of the Earth, but the units have got to be something like miles per nanometer per second squared or something, because he's got all these units are just wrong.
Okay.
That's your initial sanity check in any field of science or engineering. That's what you do. To check the units to see if what you just did makes any sense. If you're coming out with fig newtons per fortnight, there's something wrong.
Yeah, it's just dimensional analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually saw that the astronomy guy like this. I actually saw that what is it? Not a furlong per fortnight. That's one everyone jokes about. A parsec per nanosecond is actually something useful. It's like 1.5 inches or something.
Yeah, you can use something like that if you wanted to.
I mean, a lot of these are just, the units are just huge or too small, but like a parsec per picosecond, I think it is. It's like 1.5 inches or something.
Okay. I wouldn't have. All right, sure.
Something really huge.
Yeah, really huge divided by something really small. Yeah.
Well, the sun really is local because it's only 1.00 AU away.
Yeah. Yeah, someone that was a joke on someone. They always like these big numbers. How far away is the sun? And they go 1 AU.
1 AU. 1.00 AUs.
on average.
Yeah.
Hey, Blue, listening to your flashback this morning, I got the impression Brian thinks that terminal velocity is the same for everything.
I was going to mention that too. I was like,
the-
does he understand how drag works?
The terminal velocity of a cannonball is not the same as the terminal velocity of a
Feather.
dead bird.
Yeah, because I think one of the fastest terminal velocities is an arrow. When they shoot them puppies up, they come down quick.
arrow or a pointy rock or something. Yeah.
Something that's not going to
And-
tumble.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
have
then-
to tumble and streamlines.
And then Dr. Jeremy had to come up with, why would you do an acceleration of gravity check in a vacuum? Why would you do that? We don't live in a
Yeah,
vacuum.
right. We live in a vacuum, right?
Was it Jeremy who was arguing with Professor Phil a day or two ago? Professor Phil was saying out of fission because we know what happens when you get fission. He said, "Oh, no, fission's never been done." And someone says, "Oh yeah, what about every hydrogen bomb ever?" And so, "Oh no, they don't exist."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was
uh,
there on that.
It's bad
Professor
luck
Phil is
saying- Sorry.
Professor Phil is a really bright guy. I mean, he's an amazingly smart guy. Sometimes his mannerisms are curt, shall we say?
Well,
I mean,
he's
the
got-
Well,
guy's
in that-
literally a rocket scientist, literally a rocket
Yeah.
scientist. Yeah. On the other
You know,
hand, he's South African, and I've worked with a lot of South African people, and they do tend to be kind of blunt. They just say whatever they think, you know.
Oh, he's South African? He's not English? I can't get the accent. I'm sorry.
No, trust me, I'm Australian. He's South African. We can tell.
Right.
I've heard people say they can't tell the difference between Australians and New Zealanders, but it's pretty obvious. At least if you live in.
No,
Maybe you it
that's-
is.
Yeah.
You can always
Well,
tell
I
the
have learned-
difference. Yeah. The Kiwis
yeah,
have
to
got
throw
a
this
different, they got a different
Africans in there
accent on it,
sometimes.
Yeah. They're always
And
wanting
they
to
just
talk
don't
about their
believe
good.
in.
It's just so weird. It's just so weird when they can't come up with the shape of the Earth because they say they don't know. The dome, that's probably what's there. And then Lemon will go off on particle physics of the electrical field around a subatomic particle and, the way it goes in the ether and through your brain and your eye. And it's like, whoa, dude, could you just measure something instead of just saying, well, philosophically, we only call things spherical, but they're really flat.
Lemon can literally derail any discussion. I mean, it's like as soon as he opens his mouth, you can actually hear my eyes glazing over because it's just that's the end of the.
Well, I actually listened to him because he is a professional bullshit artist. He could be a politician and have people wrapped around his finger. He didn't have that.
No,
Well,
I can't imagine even Lemon getting past listening to himself. No, he contradicts himself per sentence.
I know that.
Yeah.
He contradicts himself mid-sentence sometimes.
Yeah, he
There's
studied
there's
the
some sort
bullshit
of-
generator.
There's some sort of talent that makes people
Yeah.
gives people the ability to say 300 words and actually say absolutely nothing. I tell you who else can do it. Bloody Austin Whitsitt. He can say 300 words really fast, and none of it makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, are you familiar with Ken Wheeler?
Yeah, Ken Wheeler.
Yeah, and
Oh my God,
And
that
no-
man's ability to do word salad is just phenomenal.
yeah, and when none of it makes any sense after 300 words, you got to figure then who will listen to the next 300? I mean, he's done. It's like, oh yeah, he's got his first paragraph out there. Goes, okay, he's an idiot. Move on.
Yeah, the guys like Hovind and those guys and Ken Ham, who builds his entire arc on a bunch of fossilized chalk that disproves the whole arc theory, is pretty funny.
I was trying to remember that guy's name a few days ago.
Yeah, Ken
Ken
Ham.
Ham.
If you go on the road into the arc exhibit, you pass by an exposed. He actually tunneled through a cliff of chalk that's full of fossils from.
I'm sure if you dig deep enough, you can find, Jesus riding a velociraptor in there somewhere.
Yeah, I saw that. That's always a funny one.
Well, there's that creationist museum, I guess, where they have cavemen hunting dinosaurs.
I think they were talking about the same place. This is Ken Ham. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's two of them. There's the Ark Experience or Answers in Genesis or something, the big Ark, and then there's this other, I don't know.
Ken Ham's got something too, Hovind's got something too. At least he did it one time. I think I'd be possessed by the IRS once.
I like the fact that the
It's got a
arc
dinosaur park in Florida, I think it is.
Yeah.
I like the fact that the arc is beginning to fall apart and leak.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it's in structural disrepair, deferred maintenance all over the place. They got that parking lot that for like 8,000 cars, and you never see more than about a dozen.
Well, I like it when it was being built with, time period correct cranes and time period correct steel and time period correct tieback.
Yeah, time period correct steel, there you go.
Time, and then if you look at how it's built, it's got a cruiser bow on it. It's got a big knob coming out of the front that like cruisers do, which makes absolutely no freaking sense on a unpowered barge.
Yeah, when dealing with their marine engineering, that arc wouldn't float today. Why would it float then?
Well, it will float when you have steel with it. Even the one he built does, because now you've got big holes in it for the the time period correct air conditioning. Oh, you're kidding me, Has. Tell me that's not true. Guy just posted in the YouTube chat that the Ark Experience claimed on their insurance for flood damage.
Let me shout out everybody that's out in the chat. Thanks for dropping by. I see Keith Newton out there. Haz is out there. Bud's out there. Howard, you're in here, but you're out there too. And C4, hey Jimmy, what's going on? Jim Smith. Dennis, I guess it's Lou Bay. How are you this evening? And anybody I'm missing, I'm sorry. I'm watching the little red dot move, so occasionally I lose track of the chat out here, but glad you guys came by. I got 28 people watching. Wow. Another boring Thursday night, huh?
Well, Jose didn't come on today, so.
Yeah, Astro Rex, we're on Discord. Astro Rex, I guess.
I've got to say, no criticism of Jose, but the daily boom hasn't been particularly daily lately, has it?
Oh, look out. Got a super chat from Larry Scott, $4.99. Pizza money. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I love pizza.
Well,
Yeah,
I was thinking about the Australian New Zealand difference. It'd probably be similar to the United States, the difference between, say, blues accent and someone from Texas, which we could hear, but you probably couldn't.
Yeah, actually, no, you know what? Because so much of our TV is from America, I can spot. I'd have trouble differentiating Tennessee from Kentucky, but I can tell Texas. I can tell New York. I can tell Boston. They're all, and I can tell Minnesota because they sound like Canadian.
Minnesota.
Look, but by way of example, I've had this chat to Jose offline. Now, I can't tell the difference between someone from Puerto Rico and someone from Chile and someone from Colombia. They all sound the same to me, but according to Jose, they all have completely different accents, and I can't spot any of that.
I can differentiate Puerto Rican, Mexican from everyone else, but
Yeah.
once you start getting Colombian and Venezuelan, no.
Well, the islands, some of the island guys are really easy to tell. Jamaica and which of the islands they're from.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, see, look, there's really only three accents down here. There's Australian, there's New Zealand, and South Africans always sound like they're speaking
A little
with
bit,
a Dutch
yeah.
accent. And New Zealanders have a completely different pronunciation for their vowels. You know, we say six, they say six.
I've heard that if you don't know the difference between New Zealand and Australian, always guess Australian, because New Zealanders don't mind being called Aussies, but Aussies hate to be called Kiwis.
Right. Exactly right.
Yeah, plus there's 28 million of us, there's only a few million of them.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Adric, I would guess, my guess, Adric, is that the South African accent is really closer to New Zealand than it is to Australia.
Yeah, but They're similar. It's
Yeah,
similar
they
to American ears who don't hear it very often.
Yeah. South African tends to sound like this. It's kind of got a Dutch overtone to it.
Yeah.
And New Zealanders just don't believe in vowels.
And there's a certain words
fish and chips is, sorry, please.
certain words are just sort of dead giveaways. The word black to a South African is blick.
Blick.
Blick. And it's the same thing from the Kiwis pretty much.
Yeah. If you want to find out where they're from, ask them to say fish and chips, because the Kiwis will say fish and chips. And 66 becomes 66. If you know in phonetics, you know what a schwa is? It's that thing you write as an upside down lowercase e. It's the indeterminate vowel sound, right? All of their fucking vowels are actually a schwa. It's like six. You just leave the vowel out. You just pronounce it.
You know, I have not heard anybody reference a schwa e since I was in 8th grade.
Linguistics I've always found a bit interesting.
I watch a lot of British television, and for the life of me, I don't know why, but I can't seem to keep Irish and Scottish straight.
Oh, they're very different.
I know they're very different, but I can't seem to remember which one's which.
Oh, which one's which? Oh, okay. I thought you said they're similar. No, they're very different.
The reason for the similarity is because the Irish and the Scottish were backwards and forwards. Have been backwards and forwards, for the last 2,000 years. I mean, even their language, Irish Gaelic and Scots Gaelic are pretty closely related. It's like Liverpool's full of Irish people too. That's why Liverpool's got such. Manchester and Liverpool is like a half an hour drive from each other. The accents are completely different, but Liverpool's almost entirely people who've moved over from Ireland in the last 200 years.
I don't know. I think Scottish sticks way out. Irish and English, that's one thing, but the Scots, they're the way out.
Well, then you got Welsh like Craigie Blinder, and that's pretty weird too.
Look, you got to realise though. Look, there's a bunch of different Scottish accents. Like, I'll tell you a quick story. I went downstairs from work a couple of years ago, and there's these two backpackers. This is in Cairns, and there's fucking backpackers everywhere. And there's these two guys from Scotland, right? And I got in a conversation. One of them was from Edinburgh. I had no trouble at all understanding what he was saying. The other guy was from Glasgow. I had to get the guy from Edinburgh to translate what the guy from Glasgow was saying, because I couldn't understand a frickin' word that was coming out of his mouth. And those two towns aren't that far apart.
There's slight differences in Aussie accents too. The north and the south, and the Perth is different.
Yeah, there's slight. We're such a young country. We usually don't notice it. People from Melbourne don't really pronounce the difference. I had an argument with one of my bloody staff. I wrote down the name Alan, A-L-L-E-N, and I wrote down the name Ellen, E-L-L-E-N, and I said, here, say Alan and say Ellen, and she pronounced both words the same, exactly the fucking same. It's like, but they're
we
different.
We have similar tests in the United States to distinguish. One of them is the name M-A-R-Y, and then there's the word to be jolly with M-E-R-R-Y, and the last one is to be wed is M-A-R-R-Y, and do these words sound the same or similar or different? And depending on which part of the United States you're from, those three words can sound very different.
I had a college professor that was the first guy that I ever heard talk about that exact test.
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah. Most of the United States will say Mary, Mary, and Mary, but you get in the South, it's Mary, Murray, and
Mary, yeah.
So are you saying that most people in America pronounce those three words the same?
That's correct.
I'd say that, yeah.
All right, let me do the test, right?
Bostonians will pronounce it differently.
Boston itself.
See, down here, the name is Mary. To be happy is Mary. and nuptials are marry. So Mary, Mary, and marry.
It sounds very similar to me.
That's what we get in the South. Mary, Mary, and Mary.
Yeah.
That's why,
Yeah, all right.
that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
you,
but you guys
That's why you
pronounce
gotta-
Craig. Craig.
well, there is
that right?
Greg. But
Yeah, but
that's
yeah,
why,
Craig
that's
Ferguson,
why
he's got his own show host. I've heard people pronounce his name as Craig.
Depends. If you're from the South United States, you'll get that little draw on the A. Craig.
Cried.
You sound Craig almost.
well, that's the best part about English language is you can mispronounce it horribly, and you can still make sense of it. Now, I travel around quite a bit, but also if you notice, like on any newscasting or something, and they're interviewing somebody from Germany or India or wherever, and they're speaking in hideous English, but we get it. But
My favorite
Sure.
is when
but
my
the
favorite
point,
is when
the point is in most of your other languages, a mispronunciation turns into gibberish. Or if it's like they completely, like for instance, I was in China, and on their state TV they had melodrama TV show, and they're
Okay.
speaking Chinese, and it was subtitled in Chinese.
well, I always love
Yeah.
when American TV will interview someone from, I don't know, say Scotland or something, and they'll start putting subtitles down below. Basically translating from English to English.
Have you
Well,
guys
when I
seen?
listen to Dell, I almost need
Yeah,
subtitles.
Dell is particularly bad.
Have you guys seen the original Mad Max with Mel Gibson?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
I
first
own it.
one. That was dubbed for the American market.
I think I heard that.
You guys actually, Mel Gibson was born in New York, but he grew up in Australia, and he's got an Australian accent, at least he used to. When they released that in America, they dubbed it because they reckon they couldn't understand their accent.
And rightly so.
Oh, hey, come on. You guys think it's pronounced Nikon? Give me a break.
But
You think it's
when
Nikon?
when I
Well,
come
that's
across when I come across the British sitcoms that were made for the British market, I love to watch them because I learn a lot about it. And one of the best shows was that one that came out, it was like already 25 years ago or something. Absolutely Fabulous, AbFab.
Oh, AbFab? Oh, I
yeah,
love
yeah.
AbFab.
There is an array of accents in there. They're like making fun of their accents. It's hilarious just to watch them, because they'll mix the Scottish and Welsh all in there, and they'll just take it to an extreme, and it's hard to keep up. But then after a couple episodes, you get used to it, and that's a handy skill.
I think it's Mark Twain who's credited. He probably didn't say it, but he's credited with saying the English and Americans are two people divided by a common language.
That was Winston Churchill, actually.
I mean, was it Winston? It's everything that's like, a really good quote is either credited to Winston Churchill or Mark Twain, it seems.
Yeah, Churchill
Yeah,
said,
including things we didn't actually say.
said we were two countries separated by a common language.
Yeah, well, his mother was American.
Right.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah, his mother. What was her name? His mother was
Mrs.
was
Churchill.
No, he's half American. See, that's my favourite saying of all time, which is always ascribed to Mark Twain. It's actually not. If all you've got is a hammer, eventually everything looks like a nail.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Japanese thing, I think. Or
Yeah, it's from somewhere. It's not Mark Twain, but maybe it should be.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, it is true.
Oh,
Will
Like
Rudd.
you go to a surgeon And their solution for everything is to cut you open.
Yeah.
You go to a physician, and they won't.
Will Rogers was a guy that could come up with some great ones too. And somebody reminded me of one. Let me see if I can quote what he said about
Will Rogers?
about Anthony Riley. He said, this guy types this to me in a comment today. He said, as Will Rogers once said, Anthony was born stupid, and it's been downhill ever since.
Jenny,
That's like that apocryphal letter home from a teacher to some parents. Your son has hit rock bottom and has now commenced to dig.
Jenny Spencer Churchill was
There we go, Jenny. Thank you.
born in Brooklyn, 1954.
There you go. He's,
My father would sometimes describe someone as being as dumb as a box of hammers with all the smart hammers thrown out.
yeah.
That sounds like a Southern saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
There's a Southern saying that when one of these guys finds something right, it's like, I have a Southerner says it's, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then.
Yeah. Where are you from, Rob?
Have you?
That's a good question. I've spent my entire life, well, damn near my entire life in the South, but I'm a Navy brat, so I've been Texas, South Carolina.
So you don't sound like you're
Florida,
from the South.
Atlanta. Yeah, my accent's muddled.
Yeah, mine's a bit muddled as well.
It's more distinct, though. I mean, you're obviously a son of the South.
Oh yeah, there's no
Yeah.
questioning that. The question is, what part of the South?
Well, it's okay. It's another issue.
Yeah. I'd say deep South.
I didn't know that. I
I
didn't know
hear
the
deep
South. I didn't know the South had parts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean,
Someone-
Texan sounds way different than someone from Alabama.
Yeah,
And that's where I started out, was Alabama.
there you go.
And
Where
I
I
don't.
got
That's
it.
where
I
I'm
don't-
thinking.
I don't consider
What-
Texas the part of the South.
Oh, don't tell a Texan that. Well, actually, Texans think they're Texans, so.
I say we're here in Texas. We're Texas. We're our own country someday. We have our own, we
Texas-
have our own electric grid even.
Texas seems to think
Has it
they're a
gone
different
down?
country.
The
Yeah,
Republic of
actually,
Texas.
there was a guy in the Texas Congress who actually put forth a bill on the floor to secede from the Union. So, within the
Yeah, you
last
think they
2
would have learned
weeks.
it? You think they would have learned something that happened 160 years ago, kind of settled that issue?
Hey, would I be right in thinking that Florida's not really part of the South either?
Yeah. Well, it
No,
depends. What part of
depends.
the Panhandle is, but you get into the other part. It's not. But the
Yeah,
Panhandle up by Tallahassee and stuff, that's definitely part of the South.
Yeah, the Panhandle's fine, but that hanging down part, we do not claim that. No.
Yeah, that's basically Southern New York and Southern New
Exactly.
Yeah, you get a lot like the Tampa area and the the Palm Beach area, or Miami. You get a whole lot of
Well,
snowbirds coming
here's
down.
the funny part about that is the East Coast is people from New York and New Jersey, because you come right down I-90, and the West Coast, the Gulf Coast, is people from Chicago and Michigan and that, because you come right down that's I-25.
Yeah.
The other one, I think. The one's up I-15, I-25. But anyway, it depends
75.
what
75.
whatever one you come down is the one you end up. So
Well, yeah, we find ourselves fairly heavily populated with what we call the halfbacks. Those are the guys that left up north and went all the way down into Florida because it was too cold in the north, and they got down there and figured out it was too damn hot, so they moved halfway back, which is about where
halfway
we are.
back.
Yeah, those are the halfbacks.
Nice.
Well,
Florida's
they're called snowbirds for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
back a few years ago when
Well,
everyone was worried about
snowbirds will go back and forth. They'll migrate. They'll go from the north when it's summer and then south in the winter. But the halfbacks sound like they just said, "Screw this! I'm just going to go in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm going to split the difference."
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of my time up in the northern end of Indiana and up in Illinois and stuff. And knew a lot of people up there. But one guy told me one day, he said, the winters were a lot worse in the early 90s than they are nowadays. But he told me one time, he said, one of these days I'm going to put my damn snowblower in the back of my truck and I'm going to start driving south until somebody says, what the hell is that thing? And that's where I'm going to live.
Right, that's an old. I'm told that comes from the seafaring guys. After they're done sailing, they say, "I'm going to take an oar over my shoulder and walk inland." And the first place to say, "What's that?"
Yeah.
But anyway, back when the Everglades, they're having problem with the Everglades, I had a great solution for the Everglades. What you do is you outlaw air conditioners south of the Lake Okeechobee. And from that point on, within 3 years, everyone will leave the interior of Florida and go back to living right at, within 2 miles of the coast like they did in the 30s.
Well, you're always going to have Florida crackers that are going to.
Okay, there'll be a few swamp people, but most people will say it's too damn hot to live here too humid to live without air conditioners.
They'd be right.
That's why I will never live in Florida again. It is miserable there.
All right, so when we, which way is the peak of this oscillation? Whoops, I want to make sure I get this on the right side.
Just noticing in the chat, this man does the work of two men, Laurel and Hardy.
That was the peak.
I used to live in Alice Springs. Don't talk to me about miserable weather.
I've always wanted to go to Australia, but I have colleagues who were in Sydney, but I never actually managed to get down to them.
I've got an aunt who lives in the northern peninsula of Michigan. I've never been to see her. She used to live in Melbourne, but she's up in the bloody. So yeah, Upper Peninsula, isn't it? Not North, Upper Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of you guys came over here from bloody Ford Motor Corporation and worked in Melbourne for a while. She married my mum's sister and took her back to Michigan. Yeah, no, don't visit Alice Springs unless you have no problem with 48 degrees Celsius.
What's the humidity like?
The humidity, actually, to be honest, the humidity is so low. My wife and I had to buy a humidifier to put in the bedroom. We were waking up every morning with nosebleeds. So the humidity's good. If you go up, the capital of the Northern Territory is Darwin. That's the worst place I've ever been. It's almost as hot, 45 degrees at times, and the humidity for 4 months of the year is above 80%. It's just an abomination.
Yeah, I used to live in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I always want to pull up a converter because, we would get 110, 120 Fahrenheit. That was much more tolerable than Florida, which gets into about 90 to 100, but has 90 to 100% humidity. That is just
49 Celsius. 49 Celsius is 118 Fahrenheit. But working in Alice, I used to leave work at 5 and it was 36, 38 degrees. By the time I got home, an hour later at 6 o'clock, it was 8 degrees. And because of the low humidity, you walk into any shadow and it's 15 degrees cooler. Any breeze is like really cooling because there's no humidity. Darwin's like walking into a sauna. 4 months a year before the monsoon starts, it's just. I've known people who've gone to Darwin and ended up in hospital with respiratory distress. I'm white, pure blood Anglo-Celtic, and I wasn't designed to live in Australia. I don't belong here. I belong in fucking Northern Europe somewhere. I really don't know what the hell I'm doing here, apart from some convicts got shipped out here in the late 1700s.
Yeah, well, the British did tend to like to, expand everywhere and drop people off.
Yeah, God bless them. Yeah, it's a funny thing. The biggest wankers in Australia come from Adelaide because of all the capital cities of all the states in Australia, the only one that didn't start off as a penal colony was Adelaide, and boy, do they let you fucking know it.
Yeah, I definitely need to go down to Australia at some point on my observatory tour, which is on my bucket list. I think the Parks Observatory is down there. I want to see that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, there's parts.
Assuming it didn't burn up.
No. Oh, look, this part. Look, honestly, the place you really need to. This is going to make me a traitor. If you come down this way, the other place you've definitely got to see is New Zealand, because it's got you go up the very north, it's like tropical beaches and stuff. You get down to the south, and it's like Norway. They've got fjords. Well, you've seen Lord of the Rings. It was all shot in New Zealand, and that's all. There's no CGI there. That's all bloody real New Zealand scenery.
Yeah, but after watching The Lord of the Rings, I feel like I've been there since, it's essentially a walking tour of New Zealand.
The downside, of course, is that unlike Australia, they have earthquakes and fucking volcanoes.
I did some hard time in Papua New Guinea. Did about six.
Damn.
That was hard time.
What took you there?
Everyone's got horror stories about Papua New Guinea. Everything from that some of the remote tribes are still cannibal to it's more it's okay to run over a kid, but if you run over someone's pig, drive straight to the airport and get on the first plane to anywhere. It's yeah.
What were you doing in Papua New Guinea?
Mapping it, the entire country.
Oh shit! All right.
That's got some big mountains.
Yeah, and we're mapping it at just about 40,000 foot elevation in a Gulfstream jet. Months and months. Map the entire country.
Very nice. Very nice. The most exotic place I've ever been is the Philippines. My dad was stationed at Subic Bay in Manila. That was fun. We got our own maid. It's weird.
In the interior of Papua New Guinea, I think they got 17,000 foot mountains.
My dad spent 4 years in. My dad spent 4 years in New Guinea in the 1940s behind a Vickers machine gun.
And I was there during a specific event, and that was I experienced the subsolar point.
Oh.
It's about, I think, if I recall, it's like 9 degrees south latitude, and I was keeping track, and I said, for the next 2 days, the sun is going to pass less than 1 degree off zenith.
I'm an American, so my geography is really shit. But What latitude is Papua New Guinea at?
I thought it was, my
It's
recollection,
on the equator.
my recollection is 9 degrees south, because I was in,
Oh.
Port Moore's.
Doesn't the equator run through it?
Yeah.
Maybe. Not sure.
This is why Google was invented.
Don't worry, guys, I'm on it.
Who's that?
Hello, Terry.
Is that accent? Oh, Terry, how are you, buddy?
Hey, mate. Yeah, I've just got my
Howdy,
Google,
Terry.
my Google Earth Pro up and running.
Well, where I'm
where
sitting
are
right
we?
now, where I'm sitting right now is only 14 south.
Your Port Moresby's about 9 or 10.
Yeah, the northern part is still 3.25 degrees south. So no, it does not cross.
Yeah. Does it go through, Dad was in Bougainville too. Does it go through Bougainville? That's an island north of Papua New Guinea.
Jeez, I don't know
Oh,
my geography that well. There's a couple of
Dad
islands.
Dad was in the Solomons, and then he was in Milne Bay, and he ended up on Bougainville.
But I was in Papua New Guinea a very long time ago, about 2005 or something.
It's a lawless place.
That'd make it easier.
I tell you why, because all of the islands between Cape York, which is for you Americans, that's the pointy bit at the extreme northeast of Australia. All of the islands between Cape York and Papua New Guinea, including the one that's only 8 nautical miles off the coast of PNG, all of those islands are Australian territory. So there's an island 8 miles off the coast of Papua New Guinea that's actually part of Australia. At very low tide, you can walk.
Volcanic?
It seemed like when I was there, it seemed like Papua New Guinea was Australia's Puerto Rico.
Yeah, well, it was an Australian protectorate until the 1970s sometime. So then we got out of there, and the Indonesians, all the hoo-ha between Papua New Guinea and Irian Jaya, which is the western half of that island, kind of started when Australia pulled out.
And when we were there, we were mapping Papua New Guinea and paid for by the Australian military. And they kept asking, well, what's the nature of the project? And I said, I don't know, maybe they want to cut down and take all the trees.
It's a wonder the Poms didn't try to colonise it back when we did Australia.
What makes Papua New Guinea worthwhile is some of the mining, gold mining and so on up in the mountains. But other than that, as I said, Dad was there for 4 years. It's just unpassable, densest rainforest you've ever seen. A shallow slope on a mountain is a 1-to-1. You know, it's almost vertical hills. It's horrid. And everything is trying to kill you, including the people.
It did appear that the mapping had an underlying thing of mapping out the resources to rape it.
Yeah, well, there's probably some of that. Oh, yeah, my aunt and her husband were there in the 1930s, gold mining. It's resource dense, but everything, it's really hard to get to. There's a lot of mines on Bougainville. I forget what for.
Well, Papua New Guinea was hoping to be third world. They're not there yet.
yeah, it's
Was
if you wanted to, if you wanted to disappear off the face of the earth, PNGs are actually not a bad place to go.
was Bougainville where the Black Sheep Squadron flew out of? I think so.
Yeah, Happy Boyington, those
Yeah.
guys.
Right, Pappy Boyington, exactly.
Oh, I thought that was Vela La Cava.
An old show, Bob, what was it, Baba Black Sheep?
Yeah, Black
Not
Sheep
them.
Squadron.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Corsairs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With
That's
that
where you-
ridiculous nose, that nose that was the engine nacelle was so long, they couldn't land in a straight line on a carrier. They had to do a curved approach because by the time they got lined up, they couldn't see the aircraft carrier at all.
I didn't know you were going to play with your balls today, Blue.
Yeah. Well, I kind of left them alone last night, so, you know, I don't want them to get lonesome. And in about 30 seconds, I'm going to play with them again.
Oh, okay. I can't miss that.
It's
I've got the YouTube running.
it's time to make the little red dot move the other direction.
Mm. Oh, we were having a good combo on this about this last night on Gems. You missed out on it.
Here we go.
What was it about?
About the experiment about how things can be affected by it, like even Blue walking around it, and then one bloke said, "Oh, what about all the draft and all the air movement? Well, it's in an enclosed space. Where are you getting the air movement from, and all this sort of stuff." And then the electromagnetic static forces and all this came into it. And, jeez. I tried to cover you a little bit, but other people were jumping in too much, so I let it go. Oh, I see legs.
Yeah. I was actually reading an article. Unfortunately, I didn't read it too carefully, and I don't remember much about it other than the fact that there was I think it was a German team that was doing a gravitational experiment, and their precision was such that they actually had to worry about their own mass affecting their measurements. So
It
I
will.
was like, oh, I wonder.
It
I
will.
wonder if Blue
you
has
did
that problem.
Blue, and that torsion beam didn't even move. It didn't even read on the screen as any movement, like from you bumping anything or anything.
I can go over there, and, but I can go over there and stand next to one end of it, either the front side or the back side, and I can influence it, definitely. Which is why I stay away from it. I just go around and get straight on the other end. You notice when I move these things, I'm always lining myself upright with that opposite side. That way I'm only, my mass is only pulling it that direction, not in the direction of swing of the beam. You have to be careful with it.
Does it depend on what you had for breakfast, like bacon and eggs, or?
I have not been able yet to use it to determine what I've eaten for breakfast, but I suppose with a little work, we might be able to figure that out.
Yeah, try steak one time and then try eggs another time.
I've got a total of 27 measurements so far.
Wow. That's the definition of a scientific method, repeating your results.
Yeah. And they always repeat, they just get slightly different numbers, that's all.
What's that saying? If you're expecting a different outcome or something?
Insanity. The definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over again until and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah,
I think that's attributable to Einstein, which, as we all know, Sleeping Warrior is far more intelligent. With
these Riley tub. No, no, Sleeping Warrior. That's the other guy.
No, same dude.
Oh, same guy. I
Yeah,
get that.
Tony
I
Todd.
always get
That's
those
Sleeping
two
Warriors.
clans mixed up.
Well, let me say that hats off to those guys for actually doing something for a change, rather than just
Agreed. Yeah.
rather than just sitting in front of their computers, talking into their microphones and criticizing what other people are doing. At least they're doing something.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure that their motives are
Yeah.
as wholesome as they should be. I'm not totally convinced that they're actually
I've
trying.
always given Anthony Riley credit.
Huh?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, I've always given Anthony Riley credit for actually doing an experiment of
Yeah.
one form or another. It was badly done, but he did it.
At least he did something. So I won't take anything away from a guy for trying, but to a greater or lesser degree, we're assuming he's actually trying. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do. Science isn't about.
Yeah, like
He couldn't figure out how to get lead balls, so he just got a roll of lead flashing.
and I can't give Riley any credit when he's going to do that egg density experiment. And he takes apart the dissolved solid meter. And he goes, I don't know what this is, but it's a number. And sticks it in and goes, see, bigger. No, I know. I give him no credit for that. Because then he gets up there with all the certainty of religion, saying how they all of formal physics is wrong, and he has his replacement assertions that are just so batshit crazy. I mean, he used to say math is leaky.
Are these new ones
Well,
that he's got out?
The guy has no formal training. He's got no background. His math capabilities are woefully lacking, and you can say all of those things. So that just puts him in a bad spot in terms of being able to make a rational judgment as to whether or not what he's doing is appropriate.
Okay.
But he has
No,
produced some stuff. So okay, good for you.
he's changed his lead rolls now, and he's got magnetic force tested. Yep, it's sensitive enough to detect and prove magnetic force. Showing the magnetic attraction between the steel block and the steel loop in the lead ball on the torsioner. What's he?
What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm sharing it in here. This one was done April 15th.
Well, he's claiming that the lead balls they're using, for some odd reason, they got to be fishing weights. I don't know any other reason to make lead cannonballs, little ones like that. They got to be fishing weights, but he claims that the things have got steel loops in them for hanging them, which makes no sense to me. Why would you put a carbon steel loop in a thing that's going to go out in the ocean?
So it might be a metal grommet. I mean, maybe they put it there, but it sounds just like a metal grommet, so it doesn't cut through their whatever they're hanging on. And they might not be fishing weights; it could be like weights that you put in draperies or something.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Could be a plumb bob.
I know the ones that I bought from again. I said all this stuff at the start of the stream, and I showed it actually. I've got some little small neodymium magnets just to prove that they won't stick to these lead balls or the little brass loop that are installed in mine. And I got mine from a fishing supply company called Ocean Angler. They're out in California, and that's the only way they make them. It's pure lead with a little brass loop cast into it. But Anthony claims his are steel, and so they're affected by magnetics. Okay, well, you should find some balls that don't have steel in them, Anthony.
So what was that fluid or basically it looked like there was a gallon jug or some kind of jug next to the Tony tub.
Oh, he set
Yeah, I
a
couldn't
he
figure
set
out
a
what
big
that
jug
is.
of water up on top of the lead, which I'm not sure I don't think he understands that really wouldn't do very much of anything. Number one, it's way up above the other masses,
There you go.
so it's pulling up on them,
That
not
one.
necessarily pulling them in the arc of rotation. I don't know.
Yeah, there's going to be some component in that arc, but along
Yeah,
that
there would
direction,
be.
but
Yeah.
it's probably not a lot of mass. I mean, I don't even know what's that for.
Well,
Hmm.
you've got a material that we call water, which has a specific gravity of about 1, compared to lead, which has a specific gravity of about 12. So, you know, something should tell you there that the water is not going to have very much effect compared to the lead you already got sitting there.
Yeah, the density of water. Yeah.
Depending on your units, is 1.
Yeah, lead's about 12 times as dense as water.
So can someone explain to me what Bob Nodell believes in? Because apparently he does believe in a downward force. He just doesn't call it gravity.
Right, he thinks it's something else.
Mic check.
Got mine.
Here we go.
Got mine right here.
I don't know. Mine's working okay. How about yours, Hugh?
Yeah, we got you.
That's what I'm trying to determine.
Learn something new every day, don't we?
Yeah,
There's always got to be one wise ass in the crowd, huh, Huey?
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, I wonder who that is.
How you doing, man?
yeah, I'm good. And yourself?
Doing well, sir. Doing very well.
I enjoyed your video. I watched that this morning.
Yeah, I had parked that one. I had parked that one back in the archives and had intended never to pull that out just because it has to be so embarrassing for Brian Leakey. But Leakey then decided the other day to put out a hit piece on me where he took something off the stream. I was just joking, and he totally misrepresented it. And to tell you the truth, it infuriated me. And I thought, okay, that's enough. I'll teach you a little lesson here. And that's the
What was he
reason that
saying?
video got made.
The inverse square law.
Yeah, it was embarrassingly stupid.
It's almost as bad as the guy that thinks that sound is an electromagnetic wave.
Oh,
Who's
God
that?
almighty. Yeah.
Yeah, who is that?
Sin cleanser.
That's right. Yeah, sin cleanser.
Hmm.
Because it's energy. You see, we're talking about energy and frequency. You guys don't understand. We're talking energy.
Sure.
I mean, what someone should have done was say, okay, show me where it fits on the electromagnetic spectrum, you know?
But
Where
then
is it on there?
Jeremy had to double down that, yeah, mass, only solids have mass. And once it turns into a gas, it loses the property of mass.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that's out of Sleeping Warriors playbook. Something about intermolecular bonds are necessary for mass to exist or something. Or
Well, since you can only weigh it if it's in a container, then when gas is not in a container, you can't weigh it. You can't weigh it. It has no weight. It has no weight. It has no mass.
God.
And mass and matter share the same bed, so you don't have mass, you don't have matter. Yeah, when it's gas, it's like gone.
So not only can you not have pressure without a container, you can't have mass without a container?
Well, see,
Well,
the
you
thing
can't-
is, once we get out of a gravitational field, mass goes away, according to flat Earth data.
But that Jeremy cat, he was just like so off the wall. I mean, it's like, yeah, if you take a block, as was pointed out, you take a block of CO2, solid, dry ice, put it on a scale, and you can weigh it. And then when it sublimates and turns into gas, right? the weight doesn't go away. It's just, yeah, well, you need a container. I go, okay, that's the scales problem. That doesn't change CO2. It's still the same atoms, same molecules.
The density will change, but
Right.
mass won't.
The mass and its weight are constant, whether it's gas, liquid, or solid. But he was carrying on, turns into gas, it no longer has weight. Doesn't have weight, doesn't have mass, it's not even matter.
Well, see, they seem to think that you can't implement appliances to evaluate properties of matter, and that might have something to do with the shape of the Earth. It's beyond me.
Well, it just goes to everything about science is wrong and they are right. And they surround themselves with technology. They're on a fucking computer and they're completely dismissing all of physics. They get in a car with anti-lock brakes. They get in an elevator with braking systems that are entirely gravity Newtonian physics. And they trust them. They get in airplanes, and yeah, they will fly 14 hours and think that they're going in some sort of straight line, and they are. It's called a great circle.
Yeah.
I've got low level of
Oh, and none of
tolerance.
the
Little dipshits like Jeremy.
And the wings are filled with compressed air. And
Simply goes
gas.
out of his way to try to make everything look as ridiculous as he possibly can. He demands a definition for mass, and if you tell him it's resistance to acceleration as a response to an applied force, then he wants to say, oh, so you're saying the resistance to acceleration is in response to applied force is attracting the resistance to acceleration. Yes, that's exactly what we're saying, Jeremy. You little prick.
And then let me ask you, well, we'll have to verify those distances. We don't know the distance between two major cities. We don't know that. We'll have to verify it. How do we know? I go, it's been measured. Well, yeah, we'll have to verify that. How are you going to do that? Jeremy wants to track the subsolar point to see if he can come up with whatever the predetermined speed is, and wants them a couple of 100 miles apart. And my question is, Jeremy, you're going to measure a couple 100 miles? How are you going to do it? I want to hear it.
We can do that experiment tonight using Google Earth and timeanddate.com. It's not a problem. We don't have to go out and measure anything. All the information is there, and we know it works.
No, they're not going to believe Google Earth because that's a simulation.
That's a globe model, you see. You're using the globe model to prove the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to the very first principle. First, you establish a shape. Okay, sunrise, sunset, south pole exists, eclipses, tides. Okay, we're done with the shape. We're on to measuring it. Right? And it was measured and spherical forever. And even in the mid-1700s, even in the 1700s, they could say, it's a little bit oblate. And they went and measured that and proved it's not a sphere. It's spherical and slightly oblate. They went out and measured it. And that was hundreds of years because it's always been round. It has always, in academia, it's always been round. It's not something they came up with, to support Kepler or Copernicus, right? No, it was always been round. Nobody ever thought.
No, go ahead.
No, nobody ever thought it was flat. And its dimension was known. And given the advancement of technology, they realized when all the neighboring countries in Europe they're doing their maps, their edge match wasn't good. And they said, I think there's a little bit of change in that radius as we go north-south. Academy of Sciences jumped on it. And they said, there you go. It's like, we'll send at great expense teams all over the world and measure the radius and see if it comes up a little bit different in every place. And it did, including Mason and Dixon. They contributed their work on the Maryland-Delaware border because that's a north-south meridian line. And so the meridian surveys was a very big investigation. And a couple days ago, somebody, I forget who, some sort of middle ground said, oh, this is good. Maybe we can get, people with sufficient background to lay out the tests so that we can prove once and for all the shape of the Earth. I go, dude, it's written down in books. They did that. They did that centuries ago.
Yeah, when I teach Introduction to Astronomy, I never talk about a transition from a flat Earth to a round Earth. I mean, I do spend time on the Copernican revolution, where the scientific consensus went from geocentrism to heliocentrism. But even geocentrists thought the Earth was a sphere. So yeah, I just don't understand where they're getting their backing in saying that this is a new idea or this is an idea that's been around for a while.
I heard Quantum Eraser. It was in a comments channel about what's his name, Sun Genis. Does anyone know who Sun Genis is? Robert Sun Genis.
Dr. Sun Genis is the biggest asshole to
Yeah.
That
he was on Modern Day Debate, and QE was in the comments box below, sticking up for him. And I said, you do realise that he's a geocentrist. He's not a flat earther. As a matter of fact, he's written a book against the flat Earth. And I put a link in to show him, and he just went quiet on me. He stopped posting because they don't understand the difference. They think that geocentrism is flat Earth. They really fucking do.
True story. I was in a neighborhood bar here, and I was talking to the bartender for a little bit, and he made some comment about his dad on YouTube or something, and I said, and I found out his name. I said, wait a minute, your name is Sun Genis? Your dad is Dr. Sun Genis? He goes, yeah. I go, oh my man. God. And he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed. He said, yeah. He a couple of, $50,000 movie video things, and it's just pure abject bullcrap. And yeah, Sun Genis is one of the worst. He's the worst.
I don't think I've heard of this guy.
His son was embarrassed by admitting that's my dad. Yeah.
Fight the Flat Earth went up against him on Modern Day Debate as well, and I wasn't sure how he'd do actually, because it's not his, geocentrism isn't his subject, but he really embarrassed himself. That Sun Genis guy. He said the dumbest things. He even used the rocket you need air to push against. He made that argument.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, he's just on the bandwagon of, if you say crazy stuff and you get clicks, then you're going to get crazier, and you get more clicks, you're going to see. It's a feedback. It has nothing to do with trying to improve anyone's knowledge or anything at all. It's just so he can get screen time, clicks, and sell money. Sell things to get money. They get their bags and T-shirts. And he got funding for his videos, which look expensive. I'll give you that. They look expensive. And yeah, he's an absolute, he's a televangelist of the worst kind. That and Dr. Lyles. Dr. Lyles, he's another piece of crap with a doctor name hanging on it. And I think he actually graduated from the University of Colorado.
Well, at the bottom of Sun Genis's whole thing is a conspiracy, right? Because the scientists don't want to accept that the Earth is at the center of the universe, because that would be God, and they won't accept that, so they're covering it up.
See, Dr. Sun Genis is not really a geocentric. He's an egocentric. He wants it to be all about him and revolve around him.
I think I may have seen a video with this guy. I saw a video with an Indian gentleman, or Pakistani, I don't know which, and he was presenting himself as a physics instructor at a collegiate level, and he was talking about the fact that you need air for rockets to work. And his complete misconception of Newton's third law was just embarrassing, to the point that I actively tried to find this guy and find what department he was in, so that I could have a chat with his department chair, because that was embarrassing.
Well, I'm pretty sure Dr. Sun Genis, had one of those Asian island, diploma mill.
No, but presumably people are paying. I mean, if he is a college instructor, then presumably someone's paying in tuition in order to listen to this.
I don't, yeah,
That's, I won't say criminal, but they're close.
yeah. Well, the thing is, if you get a chair at a Christian Creation Young Earth, university, yeah, he's going to call himself, yeah, I'm a university physics instructor at a Young Earth Creation Church school. Yeah, there's no pretense there. As is Dr. Lyle. Dr. Lyle, he's one of the biggest liars there is.
I was just kind of changing the subject a little bit. I was going through. I just got a new job, and I have to tell you, getting a new job during the pandemic is not advisable. But I just moved into my office, and I'm unpacking all these lab manuals, and I actually was unpacking one. I was like, oh yeah, I have actually done a Cavendish experiment or taught a Cavendish experiment back in 10, 15 years ago. And the apparatus was just so, I think it was from Pasco. It was just, it worked, but it was just trying to get actual usable data out of the thing was.
It's Pasco will give you a qualitative demonstration of mass attracting mass. I don't know that I would want to try to use that thing to get any decent analytical data, and they don't even really claim that you can do better than about 20%.
I've got a lab write-up for it if you want to look at it at some point.
I've read a lot of their, I read through all of their manuals and stuff and looked at the way they go about doing their G calculation. Mine's a little different, but not much.
Well, it's a matter of scale.
I just remember that thing was pain in the ass.
Those little short couple ones like Pasco make have a fairly large systematic error built in, and it's due to the adverse attraction of the distant small ball, and that adds up for them to be reasonably considerable. Where on this thing, I've got a 4 foot long balance, so the attraction to the small ball on the opposite end of the balance is not very significant at all. It makes about 0.3% difference. That's all. Boy, did I ever kill the shit out of this conversation.
No, sorry. I'm supervising some students who are using the telescope, and I'm trying to figure out if I can show my screen because they've got a couple of galaxies in the field of view.
Did anybody see Bob the Science Guy's video recently?
Can't say that I have.
Oh, that's real good. You should watch that. Gleam gave him a map, a flat Earth map. It's funny.
Rob, I don't have a way to. You can share it with the other people here that are on Discord, but I don't have any way of putting it out on YouTube.
Yeah, I was trying to look for a way just to share it at least on Discord, but
well, if you want to do
I've got dual monitors and God knows how many. God knows how many applications open. I just can't seem to find the one that I'm looking for.
If you stick your what you're wanting to display over on one of the monitors, not the one that you've got Discord up on, and just use that button that says screen on it right below the voice connected icon, just a couple lines up from the bottom.
see.
If you click that, you'll see it gives you a choice of which screen you want to share.
Yeah, it wasn't. Oh, there we go. Yep, that's.
Got it?
Go live.
Yeah, now you're sharing.
There you go.
And
There you go.
so now anybody in Discord that wants to look at it can just click on you on the live icon up there that popped up. And after the little blue dots stop dancing around, it'll show a picture of what you're sharing.
I got him before the
and
blue
now
dot,
they just.
the blue square started.
Yeah, the dancing.
Yeah, they're actively using it. Are you guys being able to see it? Or
Yeah,
not?
yeah, loud and clear.
I can see it. Yeah, looks good.
All right, cool.
Wish I could show it to
Yeah,
YouTube.
I have a.
Poor
Yeah, so do
YouTube.
I.
Poor YouTube missing out.
But I'm
I
operating
am
on a
technically on call.
I'm operating on a single
Oh, I was just
monitor
gonna
out
say I'm
here,
on.
so
Wait.
I'm not real sure how I could tie you. Well, it would tear up the screen that's showing the Cavendish stuff anyway. So
Oh yeah, well the focus should be on that. But, yeah, I'm on call in case the TA needs help. So I'm kind of big brother watching them do this. So yeah, that's two. I believe that's a spiral galaxy. That's the elongated one, and then the one that's kind of the fuzzy blob that's slightly up above it is an elliptical galaxy. But yeah, I thought I'd just share that.
Which direction in the sky are you looking for those stars?
Lord, that's probably part of the septuplet, Stephen septuplet, or the eyes. Let's see if I can actually find that. Obviously, northern hemisphere.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wonder if I'll be able to see it. I can't see it at the moment because there's the bright things out there for some reason.
Let's see. Let me just do this. Yeah, this would be in the constellation of Virgo. So, what is the RA index? I mean, I can give you RA index for it, but I don't know how meaningful that really is. But yeah, it's in the constellation of Virgo, northern hemisphere. Yeah, I'd like to start doing stuff like that on my channel to basically start just showing people what I can look at.
You got the specs for the telescope? I don't want them right now, but I'm just wondering what they were.
Yeah, I've got the rough specs, and if you're more interested, I definitely can look up the rest of it. But yeah.
I know some people like that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the face of it, it's the 32-inch RC Cassegrain. So that's our setup.
Is that the
That's the
refractor
telescope,
type
actually.
one or the reflector one, whatever it is they call it?
Yeah, so it's a reflector. So the 32-inch means that it's a 32-inch diameter mirror. Essentially, light comes in from the top of the tube, hits that 32-inch mirror on the bottom, reflects up to a smaller secondary mirror near the top of the tube, and then back down through a hole in the primary to that sort of observing box that you can kind of see at the bottom. And we can shunt the light to 4 different ports. Right now, it's connected to our camera. And Blue, I don't mean to take away from your your stream. So
Oh no.
It's very interesting.
Watching Cavendish is just absolutely identical to watching paint dry. So having some more stuff going on and people talking is a lot more interesting than just sitting here watching that damn red dot.
yeah, I don't know what they're actually closing up. So they're taking calibration frames. So no more pretty pictures
Beach,
tonight.
Beach 8. Oh, yeah, you already did it, Blue. Beach 8 wanted a link to Discord. You already did that.
Yeah.
Pete Shea.
That was one of the few sort of bonuses or benefits to the COVID issue the current times issue is that we were kind of dragging our heels on automating or getting this thing so that we could view remotely. And so when we all shut down, we sort of forced our hand on it. So now you could actually be in Australia and actually use this thing.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if I can ever get my act together, I'd like to do this sort of thing on my channel.
Yeah, it's a
Not
shame
that it's
I can't
really
do it
going
on
to
my- I was just going to say I can't do it on my channel at the moment.
Not that it would really help with flat Earth because they don't think that astronomy is a science. I probably should let that go, but it
Yeah.
it still stings.
They're just, what are they, luminaries or lights in the sky or something?
Yeah.
We don't know what they are.
I agree.
Sorry.
You know, and I agree with them
They're
100%.
lights.
They do not know what those things are. I agree with them. And I'm surprised that they're so willing to admit that they're that stupid. But if they're willing to say that, I'm willing to agree with them. They don't know.
We don't know what the sun is.
Poor fellas. Actually, we know, but that's okay. They don't have to know. As long as somebody knows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still trying to get them to nail them down on kind of circling back to the scientific method. Apparently astronomy is not a science because we don't use independent and dependent variables. So
You don't have to.
yeah, it's like that's just one small, very narrow definition of the scientific method. I just kind of want to nail them down as to where are you getting this from? Where is your source of information that?
How do you wiggle your telescope?
Can I ask you a question, Rob? I mean, you've like myself and zillions of other people that are hanging around here. I'm sure you've read hundreds of papers written on various research projects. Have you ever read one where they started out explaining what their independent and dependent variables were?
No, not a one.
I have never seen it in a scientific paper ever, anywhere. In
Nope.
fact, I think the boss would think you had lost your frigging mind if you wrote that down. If what you wrote, if your if your explanation of your experiment or your observation is that unclear that you actually need to point out what you're measuring, what you're changing, and what you're holding constant, and it's hopeless anyway, right? I mean, you have totally missed it. That's such a.
To be honest with you, when he started going off on that, I was like, what is the independent and dependent variables?
Well, we don't even.
Actually, had to remind what they were.
You never think about that after you get out of the damn 6th grade, for crying out loud. I think
Exactly.
Neil deGrasse Tyson summed it up better than anybody I've ever heard when he said that the scientific method is just simply any method that you can employ that will stop you from believing that something is true that actually isn't true, or making you believe something that isn't true actually is true. And that's it in a nutshell.
And then the other day, I don't know if it was Flatsoid or Jeremy, but he said, making observations is not science. In other words, discovery is not science because you're just observing. You're not tweedling the input to get you inspect the output. So there is no science of measurement. There is no discovery because if you discover it by observation, that's not an experiment.
But the argument is you can never establish cause and effect without an experiment.
Okay, well, even in the scientific method, which they consider to be gospel, the first step of the scientific method is that you have to have observations. You have to have facts that you're trying to explain. So it is part of the scientific endeavor. You have to observe stuff in order to explain stuff, technically speaking.
Yeah, so when I made a very grand measurement, and we measured with me and a couple other guys, we repeated the Eratosthenes measurement, but we used theodolites and precise timing, and just to see what we got, as an experiment, to see if we could, or how good, or what we would get. Is there some hocus pocus that we're not being told about? So we just did a full repeat science. Well, the distances are big, so I use GPS to measure distances. Well, yep, there you go. Presupposed globe. And when I was done, we got like about 20 parts per million off the published radius. No, you're just making, that's all wrong. You got refraction. You observe the sun. The sun's nearby. You can't do that. Okay? Everybody's been repeating it. Repeatable. They say it's never been scientifically measured. Well, according to Jeremy or Flatsoid, if you're only measuring and observing, that's not science. So you can't scientifically measure anything.
Yeah.
Discovery is not science because you didn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I wanted to bend myself into a pretzel, I could kind of agree with that. I mean, it's not the entirety of science, but it certainly is a big portion of it. It's the starting portion. You have to observe the physical realm in order to discover what's going on. So, but yeah, I think I see what they're going with. Like, that was one of the arguments, or one of the things that we sort of banter with, say, biologists, for example. We call them a lesser science because all they really do is catalog stuff. Obviously we're joking, but we'll rib each other for that. So,
No, I'm sorry. I don't agree. They have absolutely nothing because by their description, just measuring the orbit of other planets to determine their orbit around the sun, that's not science because they're not doing anything. They're just observing. Well, if that's not science, then I give up. That is absolutely at the core of definition of science.
But you can make novel, testable predictions by observing things, can't you?
Yeah, like whether or not the orbit of planets is circular or elliptical.
What was the planet they discovered? Was it Neptune?
yes.
Because there was a disturbance, and they predicted there must be a planet there, and they found out there was a planet there. That's a novel prediction, isn't it?
Uranus wobbled in a way that couldn't be explained other than another body beyond it, and so
Neptune had
and
actually,
they predicted a location
yeah,
in space and found it.
yeah, Neptune had been observed as far back, I think, as Galileo. But
Yeah.
it was misidentified as just another star out there.
I don't know about Galileo. I mean, Neptune's like about 10th magnitude or something.
Well, it had been observed by other people, is my point. It going back a long way before they what you guys are talking about now.
Yeah.
When they finally sat down and said we can't explain, something's wrong with this orbit of Neptune, Uranus or whatever. Yeah, and it ended up being exactly where they thought it would be. All they had to do was point the telescope at it.
I would argue that making novel testable predictions is as powerful, if not more powerful, than establishing cause and effect.
Oh, sorry. Hold on a second, guys.
Well, it kind of removes discovery, that argument would remove any discovery from science.
Yeah. I would agree with you, Huey. I mean, to me, being able to make predictions is just as important, if not more important, than your perceived determination of cause and effect.
Yeah.
What you have been able to determine is a cause.
Yeah, and you never know if it's correct, do you? There could be something you haven't taken into consideration. So you only have correlations. What's the word? Correlation. That's all science can do. You can't prove, as that idiot keeps saying, that is the cause. You can't prove that. Science doesn't make proof. And Jeremy keeps saying that it proves things, and it doesn't. He's wrong.
Very true. Yeah, I think my point was just that observation is a part of the, like I said, just the part of science itself. As in, Tycho's observations of Mars, in and upon themselves, were good, but they really didn't tell us anything until Kepler came around and actually used them to derive his three laws. So that's why that's kind of my point of view of observations are a necessary part of the scientific endeavor. They're just not the end all be all scientific endeavor. But I get your point.
Well, when you get a bunch of amateurs together like that crowd, it's a whole lot. To me, it's a whole lot of listening. Like listening to a bunch of 5-year-olds trying to figure out where babies come from.
I don't even want to broach that subject with them.
They're not.
All they know to
they're
do.
not.
All they know to do
They're not.
is just all they really know to do is just parrot stuff. They're at the rote learning stage. There's no level of understanding amongst them, and to them, you need the checklist, the Betty Crocker cookbook of science that says do this, check the box, do that, check that box, go down the list, and when you're finished, you have an experiment. That's their approach, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're not even amateurs. Amateurs are very good. Amateurs discover a lot of things.
Yeah, I have started to change my, I guess, terminology. I don't refer to them as amateur astronomers anymore. I refer to them as citizen astronomers. Because you're right, a lot of these quote unquote amateurs, they've put in a lot of time, a lot of money, and they do, they find supernovae. They let the community know that a supernova is happening so we can train our telescopes at it. They'll find asteroids all over the place. So yeah, I don't refer to them as amateurs anymore.
Well, that comet that was discovered only about 2 or 3 years ago that was came from out of the not even the Kepler belt. It just passed through the solar system. The comet that is not in a solar orbit, and it was by an amateur astronomer, and all the professionals had to go, what? Yeah. But the flat earth, those, you know, like Sin Cleanser and Jeremy, all those people, that's like a bunch of Puritan schoolgirls that have just learned where, you know, been told, you know, where babies come from, and then they tell the adults, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, that stands to reason when you think of how vast the universe is, and you've got millions of amateurs, and one guy just happens to find something in one particular spot, right? Yeah, it stands to reason, actually.
Thing
Just
that
on
Well-
just on the scale of the thing, you know.
Well, so, you know, citizen scientists.
one of the problems that
We shouldn't really, yeah, and you're right about that. I mean, citizen scientists have done a lot of important things over the years. When you look back at stuff like radio, I mean, a hell of a lot of the early development of radio came from, you know, some guy screwing around in his garage. That's the truth. So you shouldn't discount all of them just because there's a handful of idiots that really don't need to be tinkering with anything more complicated than a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, that's why that's why
Faraday didn't even finish his high school education.
That's why that flat earth crowd, they aren't amateurs. They aren't even amateurs.
no,
I
I wouldn't
agree.
classify them as such. No.
I agree. Yeah.
All they have is verbal graffiti and educational vandalism.
Which is a shame, because if they were, you know, I want to take them at their word, and I want to take them at the word that they want to do science and they want to, you know, progress our understanding. And there is a lot of things in astronomy that professionals, as it were, cannot do simply because we don't have the resources to devote to this, particularly longitudinal or long time studies of stars or asteroid searches, you know, fairly vital things. We just don't have the infrastructure in order to do it, but citizen scientists do. So I would love for them to, you know, join us and help us with observations. But
Yeah, that's important stuff, I think.
yeah, as you pointed out, that comet, the mothership, as I like to call it, it was found by an amateur or a citizen scientist. And, you know, I think one of the things that is not stated enough is that we really do not have a good grasp of the number of asteroids that are in near Earth orbit. You know, we found most of the Earth killers, but when it comes to things that would really mess up a city, we really don't know where those are. And NASA just does not, you know, NASA universities just do not have the small telescopes to devote to searching for them. I mean, there are telescopes that are doing it, but
Didn't one go off in the atmosphere off the coast of Florida yesterday or something?
that'd be news to me.
I think so.
I just remember the one in Russia like 3-4 years ago that injured like 1,500 people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was one yesterday that went entered the atmosphere off the east coast of Florida somewhere. Made a pretty good kaboom. Or maybe I'm dreaming. I don't know. Read that someplace, I thought.
I'm sure I haven't looked at the space news in a while.
But what do you need? A rock the size of a house or something? To
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that would do a significant amount of damage. I can't actually. Let me see here.
And the one in Russia about 5-6 years ago, that caught everybody by surprise. It was
Yep.
pretty big, and it happened like within like almost the same day as another asteroid crossed inside the less than like 15 or 20,000 miles from the Earth, and they only knew about that some weeks prior.
Yeah, they had actually expected. One of my friends, when she heard about it, she actually didn't believe it because she was tracking an asteroid or a near Earth object. She was like, "We know that orbit. That's not coming anywhere near it. Well, anywhere near us." But yeah, it was. She didn't. It was actually a different object. I posted in the chat a website that I use in my teaching. It's a cool little toy. You can choose Earth, Moon, Mars, and you can play with the impact parameters, and you can see how much damage you're going to do, size of the crater, that sort of thing.
Well, it's only a matter of time. Eventually, one's going to go off over New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles or somewhere.
According to Hollywood, that's where they always go off.
Thank you for that valuable input, Adrian.
Mhm.
I'm here to help, Big Tom.
Now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Well,
I'm going to mute this again now.
occurred over
Cool.
Russia. The one that occurred in Russia a couple of years ago. Imagine if that was like in the late 50s or the early 60s during Cold War. What if that just happened to happen like during the middle of October?
Mm.
Yeah, they would have pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, the Air Force is really big into funding telescope research. They've got one in Magdalena Ridge. That is, for me to geek out for a moment, it's an awesome telescope because the slew rate is freaking phenomenal. It just zips across the sky, which if you use telescopes, that's actually kind of impressive. Because the thing is used to actually track satellites and missiles. And so the Air Force is like, here, have some money, build a telescope that we can occasionally hijack to look for nukes.
Did anyone hear that guy that was in Jose's the other day? He hadn't been around for a long time, and he started off talking about or criticizing quantum erasure and Nathan, and he didn't understand why Nathan allowed QE to go in there and pollute the channel. And he was pretty reasonable to start with. Then he went right off into the weeds, saying that we've never seen a fusion reaction, and how quantum mechanics is just woo and shit like that.
Yeah, we were talking about him just before. He was arguing with Professor Phil.
Yes.
Professor Phil was saying we know exactly what the sun is, and we know what a fusion reaction does, and we know that it has to be a fusion reaction for lots of reasons, including the energy output.
Yeah.
And then this guy, you're right, he was very reasonable for a flat earther up to a point. And he's going, no, there's never been a fusion reaction on Earth. And someone said, what about tokamak and the other? There's a couple of places where they do it. And then someone else said, yeah, what about every hydrogen bomb ever? And of course, then he said, oh, they don't exist.
Well, to be fair, a hydrogen bomb is fission. It's not fusion, is it?
No, a hydrogen bomb is a two-stage reaction. There is a trigger, which is a small fission device, and the explosion of the fission device triggers the fusion device.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. The original bombs that they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were fission bombs, right? You just get enough material to to create a critical mass, and you put them next to each other, and they go bang. Fissions, yeah. There's a small thermonuclear device, a small fission bomb inside every hydrogen bomb.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought that was the other way around. The fusion reaction was for the second phase because it's such a small,
It is.
such a short-lived reaction.
It is. You need a fission reaction to generate the fusion reaction.
Yeah, sorry, if I said that the wrong way around, yeah, sorry, that's just my mistake. Yeah, you're right. You need a fission. Fission's just getting a bloody critical mass and putting it together, and the neutrons bash into other atoms and split them apart. That's pretty easy. But you need the amount of energy created by a fission reaction to create the fusion. And I understand, someone correct me if I'm wrong. The reason you get fusion on the sun is the stupendous gravitational weight.
Yeah, essentially, in order to fuse hydrogen, you need a temperature of thereabouts of about 1 billion Kelvin. So 10 billion Kelvin, excuse me. So yes, in order to get temperatures that high, you have to have intense gravitational, basically squeezing. You have to compress the gas to the point that it becomes plasma and is exceedingly high temperature, exceedingly high pressures and density.
Yeah. Or a fission, or a fission reaction is a trigger.
Yeah. In the sun, that's basically in the core of stars. You need that temperature.
He was also talking about how the flat earthers and the globe earthers need to come together and do an experiment together. I mean, he's no idea what he's talking about if he thinks that's going to happen.
Yeah, he clearly hasn't been paying attention for the last 2 years.
Right.
I don't know. Isn't that what Conspiracy Cats is doing?
Yeah, but who knows? Well, I don't know what's Randy. Is he flipped over to the globe or what? What the hell? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That picture, right?
I mean, he's proved the globe so many times, he might as well be.
He's just given up. Yeah, but I mean, how many times have globers suggested, "Hey, let's all get together and collaborate on an Eratosthenes, right? Or let's collaborate on this." And Rumpus is asking people to come out and help with whatever the hell he's about to do. And every time they just don't show up. They start off, 2 months ahead of it, they start poisoning the well and saying it's not going to happen for this reason. And then you've got that frickin' idiot Bev who does these diagrams of his big experiment, and everyone, okay, when are you going to go and do it? He says, oh no, I've already done it. That's the diagram. The diagram is the experiment.
He's got proof. He's got proof on his whiteboard.
I've already done it. Yeah, there it is. There's the experiment. It's on the whiteboard.
Yeah, but the problem with Bev is he doesn't understand that what he's showing works on either model, does it?
Well, I mean, this latest thing he's got, and everyone's going, hey, listen, why don't you take a third measurement in the middle to measure the sagittar? Oh, no, you don't have to because water levels are proof.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
In other words, proof, you pull the proof out of its own arsehole, and the very thing that would prove or disprove his hypothesis, measuring if there's a sagittar in the middle, he refuses to do because he says it's not necessary.
Yeah, because level is horizontal.
Level is horizontal.
Yeah, it's all circular reasoning, isn't it, with that guy? Because Brian Mavitt was in there the other day, and he was saying, no, you've got to compare it to something to determine whether it's flat or curved. And then he went away and talked to Bev, and he came back and said, no, you don't. Bev's right, because horizontal is level.
Yeah, I remember that. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation.
I was a fly. I was that fly on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, when they went off and talked to each other off channel.
Yeah, he said he was right at first. You've got to compare it to something. You can't just say it's flat or curved otherwise. And he said, I'll go and talk to Bev. He went away and talked to Bev, and he came back, and he was back in his flat earth mindset, Bev's explained it to me. You don't have to compare it to anything because Level is horizontal. We all know that water doesn't fucking bend.
What's interesting about Bev's
Water
particular
seeks its own level.
psychosis? What's interesting about Bev's particular mindset is that everything he says is perfectly accurate and correct if the Earth is flat.
Or
And he
spherical.
can't seem, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
If the Earth is flat, then all horizontals will be parallel. You know, all vertical, all plumb bobs will be parallel.
Mm.
If the Earth is flat, and he just can't get out of, he can't make that next step and go, yes, but if the Earth is curved, it'll be different.
Yeah, it's just circular reasoning with that guy.
But it's circular reasoning with an incredibly small radius, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pinpoint argument from a pinhead.
Yeah.
But that
I mean,
really
you can
tickled me
even-
when Brian Mabbott went away and talked to Bev and he came back and said, no, Bev's right. Level is horizontal. What he said. That was funny.
Someone needs to do a psychology thesis on it. I mean, you draw him a diagram. You go, yeah, that's all right, but if the Earth is round, then the direction of down is the direction that things fall towards the center of the Earth, and horizontal is perpendicular to down. Therefore, horizontal will be in a different direction everywhere around the circumference of the globe. And you can draw it. It's like a very simple freaking drawing. And they just, but, you know, it's an extension of this idea that you pour water on a ball and it falls off.
Yeah.
Well, of course it does.
The level is horizontal.
So I looked up the hydrogen bomb, and yeah,
Yep.
there's multiple systems going on there. A fission explosion, which then triggers a fusion explosion. But the fusion explosion is short and compresses the unused plutonium into another fission explosion. So
Wow.
it's 3 phases.
Yeah, most
So
of
there
the
is
most of the
fire going
energy
on in
actually
there.
comes from the fission reaction.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, first, an igniting explosion compresses a sphere of plutonium. The material will then undergo fission. Inside the pit of 239 is a chamber of hydrogen. The high temperatures, pressures created by the plutonium causes the hydrogen atoms to fuse. The fusion process releases neutrons, which feed back into the unused plutonium, splitting even more and boosting the fission reaction. So you have fission, fusion, and fission.
Okay. I'm indebted to my
Because-
learning.
So what you're saying is bomb go down, go boom boom.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom.
You got it. Bomb fall
There's
down,
three,
go boom boom.
three booms.
Yeah, because initially you start off with your dynamite explosion to trigger the plutonium, which triggers the fusion, and in a fission reaction uses such a small percentage. I mean, because the chain reaction stops almost immediately, but then the fusion reaction recompresses that plutonium to continue the fission.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Because I remembered, that's what I thought I remembered, but I forgot there were 3 phases to it.
Yeah, and this guy was saying, no, there's no fission, there's no nuclear bombs, it's all fake, right? Basically what he was saying.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all
Yeah,
right.
it's all
You got
fake.
people,
And we-
you got people out there that say volcanoes are fake.
Yeah.
hmm
And if you,
I think my favorite one of those is Hans Wormhat. To him,
Oh, yeah.
everything is fake.
yeah, worm hat, yeah, even exotic birds, yeah, they're fake.
And quantum
Penguin.
mechanics is woo according to him as well.
Yeah.
Even though it's you.
Gorillas are fake.
What?
Yeah, a toucan. Come on, get out of here. Somebody glued that thing onto him.
Yeah, right.
Worm hat is
Include
not
his
even,
beat, though. Lordy.
worm hat is not even worth a debunk.
I had a business associate many years ago. This is 35 years ago now. That would heavily dispute this concept that there is no such thing as fission. He grew up in a town in Japan called Hiroshima. And he was there when that bomb went off. And they left the city to go to a safer place, and guess where they went? Nagasaki. He survived both of those bombs.
Well, no, Blue, I think in fairness, they were both fission bombs, weren't they?
Yeah.
That's about as unlucky as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We didn't have fusion bombs until the late 40s or early 50s.
Yes, when they start getting up into the hundreds of megatons. It seems like there's a particularly acute form of Dunning-Kruger that sort of says anything I don't understand is necessarily bullshit.
Bingo.
I missed the full last part of that. Anything I don't understand is what?
It's necessarily bullshit.
Yeah. I think there's also just a lot of conspiratorial distrust that they just, if a source of authority tells you something, then it's not true.
There's a lot of false dichotomy in it. I mean, I don't think any one of us would disagree with the statement that the government sometimes tells lies. I mean, that's indisputable. But what they do is they say because the government has been caught out telling a lie occasionally, therefore everything they tell us is a lie. And there's no basis for that leap of faith.
NASA bashing is the worst.
Yeah. I mean, NASA have got to be about one of the most transparent agencies out there, don't they?
Got to be.
You know. I mean, look at the they have all these bloody open inquiries. Which was the O-ring shuttle? Was that Challenger or
that was Challenger, yeah.
Yeah, and they absolutely crucified themselves in that inquiry.
I remember watching that on television.
Wasn't Neil Armstrong on the bloody board or the chairman of the bloody investigative committee or something?
It was Feynman. It was Richard Feynman got involved.
I think Armstrong was involved as well. But I
Maybe.
mean, you know, for a start, and this is a question I keep asking: if everything NASA do is fake, then why fake a disaster like that, or the next one, or Apollo 1? If it's all fake, then they're faking the disasters. And after they lost the second airframe, that was the end of the space shuttle. That was it. There was no public support for it anymore, and it shut itself down. Well, according to the flat earthers, both of those disasters were also fake. So someone sat down in the meeting and said, "Hey, let's pretend to blow up 2 space shuttles, and thereby kill off a whole bunch of funding."
Yeah, I don't understand the logic behind that. And they go off about how much money that NASA gets. And I'm like, I wish NASA would get more money. So there's just not enough money to go around. It's less than 0.1% of the military budget. It's like, come on, share the love.
There's a lot more wonderful stuff the government spends money on than that.
Yeah, and when it comes to baking tragedies, they talk about the Apollo program and lunar landings being faked. Then why did they have Apollo 13? For street cred?
Or Apollo 1.
Yeah.
Or Apollo 1. But
while I'm on this soapbox, here's the other thing that I don't understand. They're always claiming, "Oh, how come we haven't been back to the moon since 1972? Well, if it's all fake, we could have faked going back to the moon. I mean, by saying, "How come we haven't been back in 45 years?" aren't they actually admitting that the Apollo missions were true? Because if they were all bullshit, we would have continued to fake. We would have had bloody, stations in orbit around Saturn by now, all fake. If it's fake, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, if it worked that well, why would you stop?
Well, or else it's real, and the reason we haven't been back is lack of funding, because by the time, look, as you've seen from the movie, by the time they got to Apollo 13, the life crossed to the astronauts in transit from the Earth to the Moon. None of the networks even picked it up. People just lost interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when it came time for Apollo 17, they didn't take it to failure. The risk for every one of those, is just a matter of time. If they'd made 20 missions, the likelihood of losing one was too high. So, and there was no return, from a cost benefit analysis. They were just doing the same thing over and over. And and funding and triage and moving on to other things. Well, why haven't we been back? Because nobody wants, there isn't enough cost benefit analysis to put men permanently on the moon or set up a station on the moon or continually send humans when robotics, for like 1% or less, much better bang for buck.
Yeah. Plus, they got to reuse the Apollo 18 or Apollo 19 Saturn V rocket to Skylab, which was a better use for it, I think.
Yeah, one was used for Skylab.
Yeah, it would have been nice if it survived. Yeah, it would have been nice if it survived, but it got into a bad orbit.
Hey,
I know. It landed in Australia.
Wasn't all bad. We bombed Australia with it. Goddamn, come on.
Just as an anecdote, it was done as a joke. Do you know the Western Australian state government sent a fine for littering to NASA? It was done as a joke, but they sent a fine. They fined NASA $50 for littering or something.
That's awesome.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah. And Australia was just as embarrassed to get the check.
Oh no, it's just a particularly Australian sense of humour from my point of view.
Take the 250, you frickin' limey.
That's exactly. Hang on. Let's not go too far. The Limeys are the ones that sent us over here on fucking leaky ships. But I mean, look, by the time they got to Apollo 17, they'd proved that they could send someone there and bring them back safely. So there was no point in more moon missions until you had something substantive to do. Right? And all the worthwhile things since then have been Skylab, satellites, geostationary satellites, the ISS, the space shuttle, the whole concept of a reusable airframe. That's all been far more interesting than going back to the moon. And we're going back now because we've got a reason to go back. Namely, now that we know we've got a permanently manned orbiting space station, it's the next logical step to say, okay, now we're going to have a permanent base on the moon. And so there's a reason to go. But until now, there hasn't been.
Yeah, and there's been unmanned missions to Mars. I mean, that's probably more interesting than sending men to the moon again.
Yeah, if you ever want to send men to Mars, you need a moon operation again to test all that stuff out. You sure don't want your first shot at a manned mission to Mars to be from the Earth all the way to Mars. You need to try your stuff out between here and the moon. At least you get people back in 3 or 4 days. Something goes
I don't
wrong.
really see the point in sending men to Mars or the moon. The automation does it all now, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully putting up a manned mission to the moon and try to set up a permanent or long-term station on the moon, hopefully that will cost so much time and money that we'll forget all about manned mission to Mars, because that's just a frickin' suicide run.
There is a lot of that's actually a fairly hot topic within astronomy is whether or not, I mean, I agree with you and Blue in that to me, I think we need to take baby steps. I think we need to, take it very slowly, but there are some that would answer to Blue that said essentially the Martian environment and the lunar environment are so disparate that any test that you run on a lunar mission would essentially have to be rerun for a Martian mission. So why don't we just go to Mars to begin with?
Yeah,
So
that
The
you
difference
could
is
make
there's-
Part of the reason,
you could make a
I
viable
think
argument out of that for sure.
I think the disparities are quite slender. Near vacuum, light gravity.
well, Mars has got a little bit more gravity. It's got a little bit. It does have an atmosphere.
Yeah,
But
1%.
It's still more than a lot more than the moon.
Yeah, it's enough to burn
Yeah.
up a spacecraft.
Yeah, but a habitat on the moon would be the same as the habitat on Mars.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So
isn't part of the argument that in terms of the amount of fuel burn you need, it's a lot more economical to start your mission to Mars from the moon.
No, I
because
don't. No, I don't think so.
Well, no, hang on. Well, it takes a lot less fuel to take off from the moon than it does from Mars, right? Than it does from Earth, right?
Yeah, it would, but I think when you evaluate the total cost involved in trying to do it that way, it really wouldn't probably make any sense.
well, and if
Oh,
they did, even staging at the moon, they wouldn't go to the lunar surface. They would build a spacecraft in lunar orbit and get it outfitted and supplied and go from lunar orbit on out. They would not be building it on the surface of the moon to be launching from the surface of the moon. It would be like an ISS to be
Exactly.
constructed in lunar orbit, outfitted with fuels and supplies in lunar orbit.
Yeah, I think it's called the Lunar Gateway Station. I think is one of the possible projects for that.
I wasn't thinking
putting-
so much of how much it costs to put it together, so much as, you can only take a certain percentage of fuel on your spacecraft. You can use more of it to shorten the length of the trip if it costs less fuel to get into orbit, especially if you're assembling it in orbit.
Well, the other thing to consider is who's actually going to be doing it? Is it going to be NASA or a national space agency, or is it going to be Elon Musk or Jason or Jeff Bezos? Because Musk has already said he has no interest in the moon. He is going to Mars because it's fancy. It's basically it's what the people want. It's big news. It would be a big splash to actually put people on Mars. So he's gonna send them there. So if
I'm calling his bluff. I'm calling his bluff. It won't happen. It's a suicide run.
I'm not that pessimistic, but I will also call his bluff because I don't believe that Elon Musk really follows through with a lot of what he promises. So, but who knows?
It's
SpaceX is making rides.
I think it'd be more interesting to put more money and research into faster propulsion systems.
and you're not going to colonize Mars. You might put some people there and hopefully get them back, but it's a suicide run. You're not going to colonize it. And they say, oh, we need to colonize Mars. No, you can't. What are you going to do? Move 100,000 people? You're going to colonize with 50 people? And if you're born on Mars, if that were to even be possible, there's no way you could survive coming to Earth. You'd be stuck. You would be a Martian.
Yeah.
Have you been watching The Expanse?
Ever watching what?
Oh, there's a TV show called The Expanse, which is notable because it's very accurate. It's got the physics very accurate.
Highly recommend.
It's really good. And amongst other things, you've got Earth, you've got basically a very large colony or series of colonies on Mars, which are basically under domes. And then you've got the Belters, who live out in the asteroid belt who are thinner, taller, and basically can't ever come to Earth because the gravity would just about kill them.
The human animal cannot survive in less than Earth gravity and less than Earth environment.
Well,
If you put a colony on Mars, they'd still be entirely dependent on the Earth for so many things for so long. It'd be worse than the original Johnstown.
yeah, actually, they kind of touch on that in The Expanse. They talk about the dependency of Mars, specifically the Belters. The Belters' dependency on resources from Earth and Mars. It's actually an interesting storyline. But I don't know. I think that NASA. One of the reasons why we have astronauts on the ISS for, as I learned, 666 days. We're continually pushing the envelope to find out exactly how the human anatomy is affected in microgravity. So I don't know. I'd like to have more faith that eventually we'll figure out how to survive in those environments. But unfortunately, I think lives will be lost in the process.
And given the time frames involved, and if there's reproduction? No, the human animal cannot reproduce in zero G.
The other great thing about The Expanse is it's the only science fiction movie or TV series I've ever seen that doesn't have artificial gravity. They actually deal with the whole there's no gravity in spaceships very, very, very well.
Yeah, it's all about thrust. It's all about essentially the equivalence principle.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to fly from Earth to Mars, and part of the backstory is that there's a new fuel of some sort that means that running out of fuel isn't really much of an issue now, and so you turn your spaceship in the direction of where Mars is going to be, and you accelerate at 9.8 meters per second until you get to the halfway point, and then you do what they call a flip and burn. You spin the ship 180 degrees, and you accelerate in the other direction at 9.8 meters per second. And for the whole trip, except for the flip and burn maneuver, you've got 1 G.
98 meters per second.
Yeah,
because
I don't like 9.8 meters per second squared because you end up with bloody Anthony Riley and Brian Leakey problems.
But man, was that comedy gold. That was good. Yeah, I really do like. I really can't sing the praises of The Expanse enough. Both the books and the TV series, for not just how well it's written or produced, but also how well they pay attention to scientific accuracy. So, if any of you have never seen it or read it, I recommend it.
I just looked it up, and it's free on Amazon Prime.
There you go. I was going to say, even little things like
Amazon is producing it.
Someone gets shot, and they just stay standing there, obviously because zero G.
Yeah, and the bullet doesn't have a lot of momentum to it.
Yeah. Even little things like the fact that internal hemorrhaging in zero G is a much bigger problem. There's a shitload of attention to detail. It's really worth a look.
Yeah. Like the idea that you could stroke out if you go under a sufficiently high enough burn.
Yep.
So. Yeah, it first was produced by Sci-Fi, the Sci-Fi Channel. After I think 2 seasons, it moved over to Amazon, and so it's free on Amazon. There's only one more season. They're only doing one more season of it. So it gets a little wonkier towards the end of the season because they start dealing with aliens. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, but it's interesting that that whole gateway business, without giving anything away, it's interesting that it basically makes all the terraforming efforts on Mars a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah, I love the social political implications of what that literally opens up.
What that means, yeah.
The whole thing of terraforming. Anytime they talk about terraforming Mars, they've lost all credibility. That is so batshit. Any discussion of terraforming Mars, I'm done.
Well, look,
I would agree with that. I think that is a
Look,
ridiculous endeavor.
okay, but listen, I mean, what would be if we're still around? What technology do you think we'll have in 1,000 years, in 5,000 years? Within our scope of visibility, I agree with you, but who the hell knows what's going to be possible in a couple of thousand years' time?
Yeah, none. We'll be done. We'll be gone.
You might be right.
You'd also have to overcome.
Oh, you're talking about the human species?
Yep.
You'd also have to overcome the exposure to radiation on Mars, because it's got no magnetic field. It's unprotected.
True. Yeah, that's why you need some sort of dome.
You need to reduce the exposure somehow. You wouldn't be able to live in the open air the way we do on Earth.
Well, on Mars,
they would have the same protection they had on the trip there.
The habitat on Mars would be the primary habitats would all be subterranean.
Yeah.
Because if you have to hold an atmospheric pressure, you don't want that on a balloon type structure. And radiation.
Yes, I saw a talk recently where a gentleman was discussing that, and it hadn't even really occurred to me that you could use the lava tubes, basically extinct lava tubes, as habitat structures that are underneath the surface. I was like, that's a pretty ingenious idea.
Yeah, living in caves. Been there, done that.
So Larry, do you believe that when you say we won't be around for in 1,000 years, do you talking about we're going to kill ourselves off?
I think there could be a collapse of the lifestyles and civilizations as we know it. It could easily go back to tribal.
Okay.
Yeah. That variable in the Drake equation about whether we get past the whole dying in a thermonuclear holocaust or not. I was just thinking the other day, I mean, did we get past that in 1962 or whatever it was, or the 80s? Are we past that yet? You know what I mean? Have we cleared that bit of the Drake equation, or could it still happen?
Interestingly enough, there's a gentleman by the name of Adam Frank who actually believes that it's not nuclear holocaust that ends civilization, but climate change. Believes that climate change is basically an inevitable consequence of any sort of technological advancement.
And a lack of civil cooperation. Like, so we'll go back to tribal. And we are so technologically, dependent. We can't live off the land the way we humans did 4,000 years ago.
Yeah,
and
I studied about this a bit. Pre-agrarian revolution, the population capacity of the Earth is about 20 million people. Right, until you start intensive farming. So, pure hunter-gatherer civilizations, the Earth can't support more than 20 million people. To take that to its extreme, what happens to agriculture and food supply if, for example, there's suddenly a problem with diesel production? How do we get enough high fructose corn syrup into whatever food nuggets we're eating at the moment if you take away tractors, combine harvesters, semi-trailers. You know what I mean?
And the 20 million human population is based on an Earth that's intact, right? If we've
Yes.
destroyed the wildlife to the point where wild animals that, they're all part of the food chain, it may not be 20 million humans.
Yeah. It's funny, pre-COVID, so many people laughed at the doomsday preppers, and then all of a sudden people going to the supermarkets, and although the thing I can't get over, I was in supermarkets, right, and I'm watching people walk past 20 kilo bags of flour and 20 kilo bags of rice and pasta and shit and filling up their fucking trolleys with toilet paper. What the fuck? Did that happen over in the States, or was it just an Australian thing?
No, that was worldwide.
Oh, what happened here?
I mean, look,
You
I
know-
live in a part of the world where the supermarkets don't sell bags of shit in 2 kilos. They sell 20 kilo bags of shit. Flour, rice, sugar. And I'd be buying that shit before I worried about fucking toilet paper. I just don't understand.
Well, it's like there's even using basic foods is becoming a lost skill. And I used to joke around with the guys where I was at a remote base, and we would make grocery store runs. And I had to laugh. I said, guys, if we had like 15 bushels of wheat, 4 cows, and a whole flock of chickens, we'd starve to death because we wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Well, look, I've told this story before, but at the height of it last year, we've got, at that time, it's just me and my wife. We had 6 chickens and 6 bloody citrus trees, right? 3 grapefruit trees and an orange and a couple of mandarins, right? And the 6 chickens gave us 35 eggs a week. And in between eggs and citrus, you're getting every nutrient you need, because eggs have got everything except vitamin C. You get bored, but you're getting a full nutrient load if you're drinking grapefruit juice and eating eggs.
Yeah, and if you were pressed into service, you'd also be planting potatoes.
Exactly. Well, we buy 20 kilo bags of flour, and we make our own tortillas, right? Not because we're sort of doomsday preppers, just because it's fun and it's really fucking cheap.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of young people that go to the grocery store, and when a tragedy is occurring, clear out the junk food aisles, because they don't know. You couldn't send a 17-year-old to the store and say, bring back groceries to make dinner. That's not prepared foods. They can,
Look,
classic bachelor cooking. I can fry some eggs and I can boil some pasta. After that, I'm kind of done.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, at the supermarket, and the fucking toilet paper racks are completely empty, and there's bag after bag, 20 kilo bags of rice and flour. It's like, you guys don't know what you're doing.
Right. They don't know what they're doing. That's what I'm saying. The food preparation skill set for food preparation is also fading, just like, fabric stores, when people used to make their own clothes.
Yeah, well, look, my mum's retired, obviously, but she was at there's a subject over here called home economics. I don't know what you guys used to call it. And
Same.
it's too gender specific to even survive these days. But I mean, she can sew, she can cook. There's so many skills that are just dying or dead. Really important skills. I mean, my wife, is from England, but as a child, she knew how to go out with a gun, kill some rabbits, skin them, and bloody cook rabbit stew. Now, how many people living in cities could do that now?
My point, yeah, none. And when I was growing up, yeah, every household had sewing machines and a bolt of fabric, and yeah, they could make some clothes. And then, but that is fading to now it's more hobby craft.
I know my son only finished high school a couple of years ago, but he told me in surprise that 90-something% of the kids in his class had never been fishing. Right, and this is on the coast, right? This is on the Great Barrier Reef, you know, where you can catch bloody coral trout and barramundi. You know, we're not talking cod, and they've never been fishing. People who live on the coast.
Yeah, fish is something you buy in a store. My point. and even then, the young people could walk right past fresh fish because what are they going to do with it?
I'll be the first to admit, if we have a zombie apocalypse or if society collapses, I'm done. I would not be able to support myself in any way.
Just get yourself a big mess of Cajun spices and some butter and go crazy.
Yeah, I'm one of those bachelors you were describing. Basically, if it involves more than 3 steps, I'm pretty much clueless.
And if it didn't come out of a box or a jar or out of the freezer.
Yep.
But look, even then, we're not talking about being able to cook bloody, beef Wellington or anything. But I mean, for example, if you need to stretch your food supplies out, if you've got a lot of rice and some tins of soup, you can stretch things a very long way if you're just making rice, adding a tin of soup to it. You can make it go a shitload, a very long time. And that doesn't take any particular cooking skills. It's just knowing what's economical, what stores for a long time, what's got enough carbohydrates to keep you going.
Right.
What time is it where you are, Blue? That's AM, yeah?
Yeah.
Now you know how I feel every Jose's shows start at 3 AM in my part of the world. It's 2:15 here in the afternoon.